Mortem would like to thank Original Cinematic for sponsoring this week's episode. Original Cinematic is an independent production company that has made it their mission to create, produce, and promote films that are inclusive, honor women, promote the LGBTQIA+ community, and provide prominent positions and roles to POC actors and filmmakers, and promote the films of marginalized and underrepresented populations. These are all things that are extremely important to our podcast as well.
Original Cinematic is currently accepting scripts and treatments. Both William and Xxena Rush are also available via email or Zoom to discuss writing and provide input and resources to all aspiring writers free of charge. Their information will be made available in the show notes. Original Cinematic has multiple exciting projects on the horizon. Their next film, Immersion, is slated for release in early 2024. Upcoming films Fetish, Sweetener, and Run, and their documentary Drag, the Most Targeted Art Form, are anticipated for 2024 releases as well.
Their new award-winning film Group is currently on the festival circuit, and very generously, Original Cinematic will be providing a link for our patrons to screen the film on Zoom. It is truly an honor to partner with Original Cinematic, and we can't thank them enough for their contribution to our show. And now, back to our regularly scheduled program.
Salutations! Welcome to Pod Mortem. I'm Reneé Hunter Vasquez, joined as always by my co-host, my husband, and my brother.
Hi, I'm John Paul Vasquez.
Hi, I'm Travis Hunter.
This week, we're recording live from Towers and Smythe Consulting, discussing the 2017 action horror film, Mayhem. This film was directed by Joe Lynch and written by Matthias Caruso. Filmed in Serbia with limited resources and a tight schedule, Lynch has referred to this film as his most personal project. Mayhem serves as an indictment on corporate greed, passive aggression, and injustice, all while maintaining humor, high energy, and hedonistic hijinks. With committed performances from its main cast, impressive action, and a compelling premise, this film is a recent gem for many horror fans. This film was requested to us by friend of the show, Squared Circle Nostalgia. We want to thank them for their support as well as this suggestion. So, what did you guys think of Mayhem the first time you saw it?
I don't remember exactly the first time, but we were talking about it before, and I think it was in 2020 when we watched it. Mm-hmm. You showed it to me. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed this movie. I like what it has. I like what it does. I like what it brings. This is a little more my style. Mm-hmm. There is some things that I will say, watching it for the show, it does rely heavily on its momentum.
Yeah.
I know you, when we were talking earlier, baby, you had mentioned that. But it really does, because having to stop and take notes and do everything, I was like, when I got back into it, it's like, oh, that's cool. But I've kind of, the little time I stopped, I cooled down.
You broke it. Yeah.
So I was like, man, but just sitting down and watching it, this is a pretty fun little watch.
I think the operative word is fun. Mm-hmm. For me, I think that's kind of where it begins and ends.
Okay.
It's just a fun movie to watch and enjoy for what it is, kind of.
Yeah.
I do remember the first time I watched it, Nay and I watched it together. It was just before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So 2020. Oddly, I think that's what made me so surprised to learn that this film was from 2017.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not because of the fact that we watched it then, but because the content of the film seems very fitting of.
Yeah.
And so it just seems kind of strange that this was 3 years before the pandemic.
Right.
It just does not feel right to me at all. I think someone made a mistake. I don't know. But I do enjoy a lot of what this film has to offer. I think the things that I enjoy the most about it, probably the main cast.
Yeah.
The chemistry between Steven Yeun and Samara Weaving.
Mm-hmm.
They are just two very inherently likable people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so following them around for a little while and them having all this fun and this...
Fun.
Well,
They do?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
in one scene, they have fun. But it doesn't seem very fun, I will say. But their chemistry.
Right.
I think they work really well together, and they're both having fun.
Yeah.
So, but the thing I think as well, the editing I really appreciate, the cinematography, and the feel of the film.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's kind of a movement to it, and we'll kind of explain how and why a little bit later. But I think that it kind of gives the film its own character.
Right.
And the runtime is very short, and they do fit a decent amount of things into it.
Yeah.
I do have a little bit of issues with how they deal with exposition in this film.
Yeah.
Versus, because you got to tell people what's going on, of course, but I feel like the way they do it is like, okay, here is about 10 pounds of up front.
Not only that, but if you're going to do that, you only need to tell us the one time.
Also true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
That is very true.
But, you know.
Yeah. But I mean, I will admit that I liked it more the first time.
Okay.
When Nay and I watched it together. I think watching it this time, I kind of see a little bit of inconsistencies.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding a certain element of this film.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's such a crucial element, and it's kind of the impetus of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So to not have any consistency with it is very strange to me.
Okay.
True.
But I think that my major issue is kind of the script. I feel like the material doesn't rise to the occasion, and it isn't enough for the actors. I feel like even the direction of the film is fantastic.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's the script that kind of lets it down a little bit.
Okay.
And I think that it is ripe for social commentary, but I feel like the social commentary is both sparse and heavy-handed at the same time. Don't know how you do that. But there's a lot to enjoy. I will say there's a lot to enjoy, and I think some of the references and homages that are made, I appreciate them very much to some of my favorite films of all time.
Uh-huh.
It's bookended on a reference to one of my favorite films of all time.
Okay.
And so I do appreciate those references, but then it's also like, I'm going to go watch that. But I do like this film. What do you think?
I mean, y'all already told my first time story. I remember we were just scrolling on Shudder, T and I were, and we saw Steven Yeun. Mm-hmm. And I mean, who doesn't fucking love Steven Yeun? So we watched it. I was like, John Paul would love this. So I had you watch it. And it's just, it's so much fun. And like you were saying, that momentum, I would say, I was going to say the first time, but honestly, it was the both times that I watched it with y'all, for me, that you're having such a good time, and it's almost like cathartic where it's like, oh my God, like, you know what I mean? Like that you know, that you don't stop to think that really what is causing all of this is not consistent.
Yeah, no, but that's the momentum. You got to keep it going.
Yeah,
you got to keep it going.
You're along for the ride.
That's the thing, and I will credit that maybe to the direction and I'm sure to the performances as well. That when you're just watching this, you don't think about. You're not like, well, why aren't they? I didn't. It wasn't until I had to do my job and kind of dig in that I'm like, that's a little odd.
And something I did mean to mention as well is with what this thing does. There are, of course, moments of violence and sexuality and all these things. I just felt, and this is odd coming from me, I thought that it should have been a little more extreme.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I completely agree. We'll get into exactly what this is in a minute, but you hear this premise and you hear what this virus does, and to me it would be more something like the sadness than what we get from this. Like I feel like it's just more fun than an actual look at humanity if all inhibitions were pulled up. You know what I mean? It's more Maybe more. And I think that Joe Lynch even likened it to kind of The Purge.
Okay.
Where it is, because The Purge, yeah, crime is legal, but not everybody wants to be out in these streets. You know what I mean? The option is there. That's kind of almost what this feels like, where you have the option to do these things, but it's not that your inhibitions are completely lowered and it is running free and it's, I'm going to, shit in the coffee pot or whatever. I don't know.
You made us coffee this morning. I'm really upset that's
my id is in check.
That's the first place you went.
I don't know. They talked on the Shudder commentary a lot about Stephen Yeun being constipated, and I think that's the first thing that I thought about.
I'm just going to drink the tea I brought.
But you know what I mean? I feel like it would be... This is chaotic, but it's chaotic in like a digestible way. It's not chaotic in a scary, oh my God, I didn't know Bob in accounting, would be decapitating people kind of way. You know what I mean?
I think I agree with that but for me, I think the extreme is in the background.
It is.
So that's where the extreme is. But again, we're not focused on the background.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's what does when you have to stop and analyze the movie. It's like, well, you're not acting like them.
Yeah. And
that's what you told us.
How serious is this thing really?
Yeah.
And again, we'll get into specifics after the spoiler alert. But I do want to point out before we move on that is something that I appreciate about this film is we are getting a story in our face, but there is so much going on in the background that is rewarding to just kind of like look behind the main cast and see what's going on. But no, I really, the first time that I saw it, I was like, that was fucking awesome. Why is nobody talking about this? Like, that movie was so much fun. And I still think that it's really, really fun. I still like it a lot. I just think that it kind of maybe like breaks its own rules a little bit in this situation that has been established, But I watched a lot of interviews with Joe Lynch, and I watched the commentary on Shudder that he did with Stephen Yeun. Shout out to Kristen Lofton for sending us the Blu-ray, and he was able to watch the technical commentary. Mm-hmm. But Joe Lynch had said that this was emailed to him while he was working a corporate job.
Now, is this Dave's kin or is
it is not.
It is not.
No,
I did laugh that we went from David Lynch to Joe Lynch.
Different sensibility.
Yeah, a little bit different. But he said that it perfectly captured a lot of the frustration that he had with the corporate world. And he knew that this was a story that he wanted to tell because he had never had a script or read a script. He said even things that he has written that touched him so personally as this one did. But he said he reached out to the screenwriter Caruso and they collaborated, kind of changing little things here and there and developing it into something that they both loved. And we'll talk a little bit about casting like as we meet the cast. But he said, and the actors corroborated this as well. And I thought that it was really cool. I know all three of us think that it's really cool when a director gives a lot of freedom and a lot of input to the cast and crew. Mm-hmm. And there are full conversations in this film. There are aspects to this film that Stephen Yeun and Samara Weaving pitched in. And they were like, I love that. But I just love, because it's a collaborative process. You know what I mean? When a director is open to input like that. But they filmed it in Serbia in, I think, 25 days.
Yes.
Damn.
Yeah.
I saw in commentary, or actually heard, rather, they talked.
Well, you saw the movie while they talked.
It was all my senses were occupied. But they had said that they were looking for a place to film this. Mm-hmm. And the reason they chose Serbia, aside from it being the place where they had shot their previous project, was because as they were shopping around in different locations, they would say, if we shoot this in, say, Philadelphia, they'll give us 19 days.
Okay.
We shoot this in New Orleans, it's like 15 days.
Yeah.
But Serbia, whenever they called and kind of checked with the crew that they could work with, they were given the most time.
Okay.
And so 25 days, he says, as a filmmaker, 25 days is incredible.
Yeah.
Compared to 15.
Yeah. But on that Blu-ray, they had a making of thing, which I was really excited to sink my teeth into, and it was like 11 minutes long. So I was like, oh, okay.
You took a nibble.
Yeah. It was but he had told this story, Joe Lynch did, about the night before it premiered at South by Southwest. Mm-hmm. And his wife was like, I want to see it, because she hadn't seen it yet. So he said that he started it for her and was watching it with her. And within 5 minutes, he had to leave the room. And as soon as he left, he had a full-blown panic attack.
Wow.
And he said that he was like, this is terrible. Everybody's going to hate this. I let down my actors. I let the producers down. Like, this is awful. Everyone's going to hate it. Everybody's going to hate me. So he said his wife had no idea. She sat there and watched the whole movie.
Yeah.
And she went to find him after. And he said he was laying in his kid's bed with this phone in his hand, getting ready to call and say, please, I can't do this. Like, I want to pull out from South by Southwest.
Wow.
And his wife was like, what are you talking about? That was great. It was so much fun. He said he just had no perspective at all, that he was so in his head and so afraid. And that he talked a lot about how he and Stephen Yeun and Samara Weaving had become friends because they're in Serbia. They, either make friends with your coworkers or you're by yourself.
Yeah.
So they talked about hanging out a lot, and he just really admired them and was so honored that they were working with him. And he was like, I just didn't want to let them down. But his wife was like, do not do this. So he didn't. And he said he, at South by Southwest, within the same 5 minutes that freaked him out watching it at home, he saw that the audience was laughing, that they were engaged. And he was like, okay, this is resonating somewhere with people. So, I just thought that was a cool little story because this movie is a blast. And for the person to have made it to be like, this is shit, I'm shit. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a very, very relatable.
I will say this is definitely a crowd movie.
No, yeah.
This is one I think would definitely be even more enjoyable in a movie theater.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to say, because I was thinking about it as we were talking, where we kind of compared to like a less extreme version of The Sadness. I was also thinking about the episode of Mad Men, The Crash, where they all get injected with those drugs and they're like tap dancing and stuff. I think this is Mayhem is in the middle of both of those extremes.
Now, before we infect this film, we would like to show a warning for spoilers. Pod Mortem is a very in-depth podcast, and in thoroughly discussing horror films, we have no choice but to spoil a thing or two. If you don't wish to be spoiled, please go watch the film, then come back and enjoy the show. If you've already seen the film or don't care about spoilers, then let's clock in. The film opens with Gioacchino Rossini's The Thieving Magpie Overture with red credits against a black background.
I just have to say immediately, this classical music piece is not what opens A Clockwork Orange, but I believe it's used in it.
Okay.
That is very interesting because we're going to talk about films that... We're going to talk about another film in a minute. But he said, Joe Lynch had said that while he was making this, he watched a lot of Clockwork Orange and he watched a lot of Wolf of Wall Street.
I get that.
Yeah. When the darkness lifts, we see a painting propped up on an easel positioned between two windows. A virus is painted on the canvas, and a voice tells us to say hello to Edosia Dartellum 7, also known as the ID7 virus. We zoom in on the bean-shaped virus, infested with long blue spikes and thorny green burrs. We zoom in on the painting until we see a 3D representation of the virus as the voice breaks it down for the uninitiated. The virus spikes stress hormone levels and blocks neural paths. It attacks the id, throwing off a crucial balance our brains maintain. Just a quick note, the id is the kid in the brain. Every impulse, you
need it.
She's wild. Yeah.
Also, the name of the virus... Id Iosa.
Yeah.
I thought that was
very good.
Yeah.
And it's ID7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on now. And I will say, I said you need the id. You need it contained.
Well, yeah, we need it. Just
you
not
need
out.
It, but not.
But we zoom away from the ID7 virus and come out of a spray of blood launching from someone's mouth. Though the blood is bright red, the man in the room around him are black and white, besides a news report being displayed on the wall TV. The man falls out of frame to show the chaos of a boardroom around him. Men argue heatedly on the other side of the room. Another fight has broken out, and a couple has sex on the boardroom table. The voice explains that this is the balance between emotions and reason. the balance that's thrown off.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
In his words, this is what keeps us from doing stupid shit. As we zoom in on the circumstances in the room, he describes them. When we're angry or horny, this is the balance that keeps us from punching our boss in the face or from fucking our date in public. With the balance severed, our inhibitions are quieted and our natural instincts are forced to the surface. As a woman looks on the display in the room with horror, we see that one of her eyes is a bright, bloody red. As a man playfully throws presumably important papers in the air and a woman spins in her chair laughing maniacally, the voice tells us that this severing of the balance in our brains has been referred to by experts as emotional hijacking, but social media has tagged it the red-eye virus. To sum it up, this virus makes basic human decency take a sick leave.
They all looked like they were having a good time.
Some of them did.
Yeah.
Well,
Some were getting their asses kicked.
Well, I mean,
Maybe they wanted to.
yeah, they.
I've always wanted to get my ass kicked.
There is a dude that like spits in his hand in this
Yeah.
montage, and
Yeah.
Joe Lynch had said that he is like furiously masturbating, and it got cut out.
It's probably for the best.
Yeah.
I was like, all right. But the boardroom is overtaken by the abandonment of inhibition. As the brawling, banging, and badgering continue, we focus on the TV. The voice informs us that the first report of the red-eye virus was in Des Moines, Iowa, a year and a half ago, but it quickly spread around the world. There have been 1,000 confirmed outbreaks worldwide, but over half of them were in the U.S. Big shock.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like you said, T, it is like this was pre-COVID, pre-everything. And it is
Very.
they were onto something.
Mhm.
He continues that the CDC is hopeful that through quarantines, the virus can be eradicated by the end of the year.
I swear.
Well,
This all sounds very...
I just think of us watching it in like,
I know!
what, January of 2020? And we're
Probably.
like, that'd be crazy.
Can you imagine quarantining?
That's nuts.
He says that it is important to note that the virus isn't lethal, but the voice we've grown accustomed to mingles with that of the newscaster played by James Owen, sitting behind the news desk on the TV. After footage of chaos and violence in the streets, the two of them, their voices playing over each other, make it clear that while the virus can't kill, the infected, or the redders, can. But the report is cut short when one of the fighting men has his head smashed into the TV, shattering it. Still in black and white, aside from his one bright red eye, a man silently screams directly at us. The voice introduces this man as Neville Reed, played by Vladimir Alexic. Neville is the one bashing the man's head into the TV as he roars and screams, and we learn that he is the first redder to be officially cleared for murder. He continues to bash the man's head against the TV, but when that isn't enough, he takes a pin and stabs him in the side of the throat repeatedly. He is sprayed with bright red blood as he screams, and the man goes limp.
I think it's safe to say that the clearing of Redder, I believe is the
Yes.
term.
A Redditor, yes.
Redditor, yes. For murder is quite a bad precedent to set.
And we'll get into that.
Yeah, I wonder how it'll affect the rest of the film.
But we freeze frame, and the voice informs us that Neville's legal team argued that those infected with ID7 can't control their emotions, meaning they're not responsible for their actions. And through this loophole, Neville's case was dismissed. This is broken down for us. Neville snapped, stabbed his coworker repeatedly until he was dead, and then walked because of a doctor's note. The voice says dryly, "God bless the justice system." Neville continues to stab and scream, and abruptly and very quickly, we get the title, Mayhem, shaking violently as metal plays. So this whole opening was the last thing shot. It was shot after everything.
really?
Yeah, and on the commentary, Joe Lynch talked about talking to one of the producers, because we're going to talk about the building where the vast majority of this was filmed in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
But the producer was like, so how are you going to make this look different than the building that we've been filming in this entire time? Because it's not different. It's
Right.
the same fucking building. And Joe Lynch said he was like, and the DP was walking by and was like, oh, we were going to put it in black and white. Which is not, they were not
Yeah.
planning on putting it in black and white. And Joe Lynch was just like, yeah, black and white and red.
Wow.
And it does make it stand apart from I didn't continue the film and be like, is that the same fucking boardroom?
Right.
You know, it does make it feel very different. It makes it feel like something that's already happened. It's not a part. I mean, obviously it's the beginning of the story that's being told, but this is not our story necessarily. You know?
It is. It feels almost like a little prologue.
Yeah.
And because it's black and white, I think it does help for sure.
Yeah.
I did hear on the commentary that I listened to, the cinematographer Steve Gaynor, it was his idea that came up with it. He actually, so he shot Super for James Gunn.
Okay.
A ton of music videos. He shot the Punisher sequel.
Oh, nice.
And he was I think he worked second unit on Donnie Darko.
Oh, hell yeah.
But his idea was to set it apart, as you said. One of the things he talked about on commentary was almost this regret of not shooting the entire film in black and white. And I feel like the importance of red in this film, I think it could have been expressed even better through black and white. I would have been intrigued to see what this film would look like in that way.
It would be interesting, but I do feel like there are kind of iconic yellow things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you do, and that would be, well, maybe
Unless
like
both.
Because I'm kind of thinking almost like a Sin City.
Yeah, where
Where-
just certain pops of color.
Yeah.
Right.
The colors that are important are, and it could have given the film an even different character too.
Yeah, it would have been a completely different vibe,
it
I
wouldn't
think.
have been this.
Yeah.
I think that one thing that does give it character is another thing they talked about on commentary, which is the way that it was shot. And the way that it was shot is there's this company, DJI, who is like drone. They make those drones that people enjoy.
They make those drones.
Drones. But the thing is that they wanted something to use because they really did not have a lot of money to film this film. And so they kind of wanted to find a way to give it this character to kind of fit in with this idea of the mayhem that we're going to see on screen. And so Lynch was like, well, why don't we just shoot the whole thing handheld? And Gaynor was like, well, not implications, but not difficulty either. It's just having that the entire film is an interesting choice.
Right.
But Gaynor had actually shot a commercial for DJI, and they also, aside from drones, they make these gimbals for filmmaking.
Oh, okay.
And so they kind of give this dreamlike quality and this flow to movement. And so they just called DJI because he had this connection, and because he shot that commercial for them, they just let them use these.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's good.
And I really do. I think it really does give it its character.
Yeah.
It does.
One problem that they had is because of the way that the gimbals are, sometimes the shot will be a little off center or the framing will be a little crooked.
Right.
And so once they discovered that, they shot everything extra wide so that they can just punch in during post-production
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
and straighten it.
Yeah.
All right.
But I think that's, to me, one of the strengths of the film is the way that it looks and the way that it feels.
Yeah.
Before we move on, we just got the title card, and I wanted to talk about the title very quickly because when it was sent to Joe Lynch, it was called Rage.
Huh.
As they worked on it, it was called Rage. As they casted for it, it was called Rage. A month before they left for Serbia, Joe Lynch was like, and 28 days later,
Yep.
it's the Rage virus.
Oh,
Wow.
okay.
And so he said he's sending out emails, and he's like, I don't think we can call this film Rage.
Right.
So he said he threw out Mayhem, and everybody was like, yeah, Mayhem's
Sure,
good. Mayhem's
sure.
good. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I get that, especially because the film really isn't rage.
No. It's impulse.
Yeah.
You know, it's lowered inhibition. But he had said that he assumed that they were going to be compared to 28 Days Later. He didn't want to be compared to any zombie film because this is not a zombie film.
Right.
I think that's pretty clear. Although there is a shot later that is very reminiscent of zombies that have confused me because he was very adamant that he, didn't really want. He said for him, it's more, if anything, it's more Office Space meets 28 Days Later.
Okay.
He said that he also had been in the running for the Belko experiment.
Really?
And had read the script. Obviously, he didn't do it, but
Right.
he said that he already knew that they were going to be compared because it's an Office.
Yeah.
But he knew enough from reading the Belko Experiment that it's a completely different story. It's not the same thing. But he was already like primed to be compared to these films. And he was like, obviously he didn't want to compound it with calling it rage when there's a rage virus in 28 Days Later. But it did kind of make me sad because I was reading an interview from him. And I remember telling y'all, because I started working on my script for this last week. And I was like, I like the way that it's shot. I go, for me, it's kind of giving Edgar Wright.
Yes.
What a hot take, but I really enjoy, I think we all do, Edgar Wright and his style, his films. And I read in an interview where he was like, yeah, I've been accused of aping Edgar Wright a lot, which is fine. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I had just told you guys that it reminded me. I was like, I'm sorry, Joe Lynch.
Well, there is one sequence, the way that it's cut together.
Yeah, you know?
I mean, but again, I don't see anything wrong with that either.
No.
But we cut to the outside of Towers and Smythe Consulting, or TSC, and we finally see the owner of the voice as we follow him into the building. Derek Cho, played by Stephen Yun, goes on that these are corporate scumbags hired by the bigger corporate scumbags in the Neville Reed case. Stephen Yun.
Yeah.
Obviously. Joe Lynch had said that he was a huge fan of The Walking Dead.
As we all were.
Yeah.
As we all were. Yeah. But he said that he watched Stephen Yun turn Glenn from this, kind of funny, pizza dude into this hero that everybody, loved, everybody rooted for. He said that that's what this film needed, and that the casting of Derek was going to be very tricky, because if you cast the wrong person as Derek, this film is just mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have to kind of care about Derek as a person and not just think that he's another piece of shit, which I'm not going to lie. Derek as a character has done piece of shit. Yeah. But you kind of have to buy in that he's not a bad guy. And he said, I thought this was very interesting. Joe Lynch said in an interview that I watched that Stephen Yun is an everyman and a hero, and he called him my Richard Dreyfuss.
Yes. On commentary, they said that he had the Dreyfuss effect.
I was like,
And he does.
That's funny.
But he said that it was such a collaborative process working with Stephen Yun, and that every day he knew that he was going to have questions. Why is my character doing this? What is the motivation? What are we working toward today? And that he knew he was going to have those questions, so he needed to have the answers.
Okay.
So he said that working with Stephen Yun really made him stay on his game, stay on his toes, and he really credited a lot of the success and the outcome of this to him and to that collaborative process.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that he not only has the likability, but he has the talent and the gravitas to lead and carry a film.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you, it is a little bit sad, and when we get to this character, I'll point him out.
Mm-hmm.
But Stephen Yun's management and his agent, and even Yun himself, thought that he was being asked to play a side character whenever he was first given the script. Because he didn't expect to be...
Oh, wow. The lead?
Yeah. Or offered a lead role.
Huh.
And so I'll point out the character because it really surprised me when they talked about it on commentary.
Huh.
Yeah.
Also, this building that we're seeing, this is a real office building that they filmed in, and real businesses were working while they were filming.
Which is wild.
Yeah. He was like, so they're in their office typing on their computers and we're running around and there's blood everywhere. He said that they were probably like, these stupid Americans and blah, blah, blah.
I think he said they only had access to 3 floors of the building.
Okay.
And so that's kind of a credit to the production designer, Mina Burek. She makes each place seem different enough to where you're not like, oh, this is the same exact.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And so using the limited location that you have to expand, because the floors become an important part of it.
Yes.
So it's just pretty good work.
Yeah.
But as Derek crosses the threshold into the building, he describes the consulting firm as being fueled by greed, duplicity, and moral decay. But they screen their employees for loyalty, honesty, and integrity. With a smile on his face, Derek carries a box of his belongings inside as his voice chuckles. He steps onto the elevator, bright, happy, and smiling as other people get in with him. He narrates that these are all qualities he had plenty of on his first day here. The doors to the elevator close, and when they open again, we see a very different side of Derek, no longer bright and smiling, but visibly downtrodden and defeated. Crossing his arms and looking annoyed, Derek informs us that this is 6 months into the job, the result of paying his dues with late nights, no respect, and bad coffee. We watch him blink long and tiredly, but he tells us that none of this was going to stop him. He wanted the success that his family never had and a seat at the big kids table, all while paying back those goddamn student loans.
We feel your pain. I will say they are really front-loading this picture with.
Yes, yeah. Well, I feel it's like we're going to have so much fun. Like, let's just get this out of the way.
Yeah.
Let's get the story out of the way.
I don't know why, because I think that the fact that it is Stephen Yeun makes the narration not feel as tedious.
Okay.
But I will admit that I do think that there are different ways to have done this.
Well, Joe Lynch had said that the voiceover was a huge point of contention because a lot, I guess it was the producers were very much against it.
Really?
But he had said that his direction for Stephen Yeun when they went to do the voiceovers was he wants the audience to feel like we're sitting in a bar next to Derek Cho and we're already in this universe where this exists and he's just telling us a story. He's telling us what happened.
Okay.
I like that vibe. I think sometimes it works perfectly as far as like explaining and dropping us into this world. I think where it falls down a little bit for me is where we get to certain characters and it's like tell, don't show, and it's like, here's how you should feel about them.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah,
we got 87 minutes, dude. Hate this guy.
I honestly, I don't mind the voiceovers, and I think the way, because it is very heavy-handed introducing these characters, but I think the way that they do it visually is very interesting.
I will agree.
And if you buy in enough to like Derek, it's fine seeing it through his lens. My thing is later when he's like, this is the virus, this is what it does, this is how it affects you, and then it's later it's like, this is the virus, this is what it does. It's like Derek already told me. Like I know already.
Yeah.
Well, and you talked about the Wolf of Wall Street influence. Scorsese is narration.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's more successful when he does it. I don't know. I don't know, but I do like it. Just not all the time.
Someone walks out of the elevator, blocking our view of Derek, and when we see him again, he is smiling and ambitious in a sharp suit, but the people behind him still push past him to get off the elevator. They knock down files he was holding, and he stoops to pick them up, and when he stands again, he is that middle Derek that we saw, the tired and defeated one just leaning to pick up his bag. He admits that the higher he rose, the more he felt that he was losing himself. And once he discovered the loophole that won the Neville Reed case, he was, of course, promoted. So he's the one responsible.
Yeah.
That's upsetting.
For setting this precedent, which is very interesting.
It is, but isn't that his job?
It is his job. It is.
Still disappointed.
Derek takes out his phone and starts texting as he admits that by then, it didn't matter that he thought Neville Reed was guilty as fuck. He just wanted the corner office, and for his sins, they gave him one. We see Derek again in another suit, standing on the elevator with headphones in and sunglasses on as he texts. Even he can't help but comment on himself. What a dick. Very much giving Patrick Bateman, which is interesting, and I wrote this before I watched all that commentary stuff. We'll talk about it later. But Derek slides off his sunglasses as he walks down the hall, his headphones still in his ears. A reception desk lets us know that we're on the 5th floor of Towers and Smythe Consulting. So that whole sequence with him in the elevator and like multiple different stages of his journey at this consulting firm, that was shot in 3 hours.
Wild.
With all those costume changes, and because again they had these spaces, but a lot of the spaces they had for a very limited time, and so it was like, we got to do this now.
Yeah.
And so he said in like 3 hours.
What they had mentioned on the commentary I heard is this just constant shifting of extras and costume changes, and that I think Joe Lynch said that he shot it from the camera on his iPhone, and over lunch he edited a sequence together just to show them that it could be done.
Okay.
And it's like, again, this is just this indie filmmaking mentality of like, get it, we don't have time, we don't have this.
Yeah.
And kind of finding out on the day whether or not things can be accomplished or not.
Yeah, that's pretty cool though.
Yeah. But the office is clamoring. Phone calls, emails, documents. As Derek moves past the cubicles, he pulls off his headphones and stops when he hears someone yelling on the other side of the office. Oswald, played by Nicola Kent, pounds on the desk as he yells at the receptionist, Jenny, played by Lucy Chappelle. He yells and cusses at her, his hand shaking as he points in her face with his left hand, which does have a wedding ring on it.
Mm-hmm.
Just throwing that out there. Derek silently debates stepping in, and he can't help himself but to go over. Jenny cries quietly and apologizes when Oswald asks her how fucking stupid she can get. Derek walks over, seemingly to defuse the situation, and when Oswald tries to wave him away, Derek insists that he come over and see what was just sent to him. They step a few feet away, and Derek starts a video on his phone, telling Oswald that he just got it this morning. He presses play, pointing out that this was the office Christmas party last year. The video glides past the festivities into an office with a glass wall. A man, presumably Oswald, sits behind his desk as someone's head bobs up and down in his lap. Derek is like, that looks like you. Oh, it is you. Oswald watches himself getting the old thinner silently before stammering out a question. How'd you get that? Cheekily, Derek tells him that he just Googled small dick douche makes his assistant work hard for the fake promise of a raise, and it was the first result. He stops the video and leans in, his mouth next to Oswald's ear. He cautions him to leave Jenny alone, or he'll sell that video to Oswald's wife for half of what she's going to get when she divorces him. He pats Oswald on the shoulder, telling him, "Good talk, bro."
So that's not virus related. What happened? that's just
him.
Last year. And I mean, with Derek, it's like, yeah, you are saving the secretary in this moment. You're also blackmailing him and saying, but you can still work here.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So I appreciated the next line from Derek because I'm like, you did some, not a lot. Not the right things.
He protected her in the moment.
He did, but he's also like, I'm getting half of that shit from your ex-wife.
I am going to benefit from this, to be very clear. But Oswald leaves without another word to Jenny, shoulder checking Derek as he goes. Jenny offers Derek a quiet thank you, and he nods before going past the cubicles again to his office. His voiceover says that it may not be much, but he'll take whatever goodwill he can get to sleep better at night. But thank God for coffee, right? As he closes the door to his office, we see the nameplate on the wall. Derek Cho, Executive Associate Legal Analyst. Speaking of coffee, once Derek is in his office, he immediately realizes that his coffee mug is gone. Miles, played by Bojan Peric, comes in to let him know that his 9 a.m. meeting is waiting for him. But Derek interrupts to ask where his coffee mug is or if Miles knows who took it. Miles doesn't know and offers to get him another one, but Derek doesn't want another mug. He wants his mug. He looks frantically around the office for it, but Miles brings him back to the moment by letting him know that David from Vandecorp is on line 1. So this actor that plays his assistant didn't speak any English.
Oh, wow.
And so all of his lines are dubbed over.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I did not notice.
Yeah.
No.
At all.
That is according to Joe Lynch on the commentary.
All right.
But Derek picks up the line and greets David, only it's not David. It's his sister, Lucy. He chastises Miles for this, but Miles just gives a shrug and a silent apology.
Miles, you're fired. That's
It's like that. I don't think that's David from Vandecorp.
No.
He's like, yes, it is.
I grew up with this voice.
Lucy tells her brother that it's so hard to get him on the phone, and she just wanted to see if he was coming for her birthday next month. Derek starts to say yes, but has to admit that no, he won't make it for her birthday, but he promises to totally make it up to her. Lucy concedes that if he's not going to be able to make it, he can at least paint her something cool. Confused, Derek asks how she knows he started painting, and she reveals that Miles told her he's pretty good at it.
When are you two talking like this?
Well, she can't get him on the phone.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, I'll talk.
She's probably like, how is he?
He's
good.
painting.
He's
Yeah.
painting. But the paintings we see, you just started painting?
Yeah, no shit.
Fucking prodigy.
Yeah, he's had this in him the whole time.
Started painting again, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
But Derek whips his pen at Miles, not just the ink, but the whole thing. And Miles
like someone we know.
Yeah, well.
and Miles backs out of the office. Lucy advises him to sign up for art classes, but Derek tells her that he doesn't have time for that. Lucy fires back that he doesn't have time for anything. Derek falters for words before admitting that she's right. He doesn't have time for anything. He doesn't even have time for this conversation. He tells her that he loves her very much, and Lucy protests, asking him to wait. But Derek thanks her for calling, saying that he loves her again, and hangs up the phone.
I will say this discussion of taking art classes sets up a very sweet arc.
It does. He sits behind his desk reflectively, listening to the office sounds of shuffling and ringing phones before he snaps back to reality and calls out to Miles, asking what's his 9 o'clock.
Just take a breather, dude. Like,
Yeah.
calm down a little bit.
Well, I mean, he is climbing the ladder.
He is, but I mean, that was just, your sister's just trying to talk to you for 5 minutes. Like, just like, no, yeah, I'm busy. I gotta go.
He's like, I am busy. In fact, too busy to talk to you, actually.
He's like, can you help me become president or whatever?
Goodbye. We see Derek consulting a file as he makes his way through the cubicles. Annoyed, he smacks a file on the railing before snatching up a pen from Jenny's desk, ignoring her when she starts to speak up. I'm going to have to expose my
Architectural?
ignorance. This building is one of those buildings that has a big hole in the middle of the floor, on all the levels, on all the floors, like floor 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right.
I don't know what the fuck that's called. I wrote mezzanine because I just like that word, but I don't think that's correct. But it does play a prominent role in this, and that's the railing that he just hit the folder on.
Yeah.
I'm going to call it a floor hole.
Very good.
Okay.
And I'm going to need everyone to get on the same page of what the fuck I'm talking about.
Well, you described it, railing.
Railing, and then it's a hole, and then you look down and you see all the... it's like a stair hole, but it's in the middle of a floor.
With no
Right.
stairs.
With no stairs.
So, yeah, floor. Hole.
So it is a
Yeah.
floor hole. Let's just all accept that and move on. And all you architects, don't come for me.
Or no, come for us and tell us what the hell it's called.
teach me, but like do it nicely though.
Yeah.
In the meeting room, Melanie Cross, played by Samara Weaving, takes a drink of water as she looks around the room.
We love Samara Weaving in this house.
Well, 2/3 of us do.
Yeah, she's all right.
Really?
Yeah, I think she's like your Mia Goth.
Oh, that's wild to me.
To
Is
him,
it?
not to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it?
I love her.
I feel like she brings so much character to every role. I think she's inherently likable. I remember, and me and Joe Lynch are very much alike because we both saw her first in Ash vs. Evil Dead. I didn't cast her in anything, but
You guys are the same.
Yeah.
we're exactly the same. But Joe Lynch saw her, I think she was in maybe 2 or 3 episodes, and he knew immediately that she would be perfect for the part. The thing was, if I'm not mistaken, they were already in Serbia, and so they cast her and spoke to her over Skype.
Okay.
And 2017 was a big year for Samara Weaving because I think she was also in 3 Billboards.
Okay.
Oh, that movie was so
Yeah.
good.
Another movie that we watched during that pandemic era. But she, of course, goes on to do Ready or Not, tons of things. And this is kind of early building towards all of these amazing projects that she's done.
Yeah, in all his interviews that I saw when he was talking about her, he was like, she's going to blow up. She's going to blow, which is like wild to,
Yeah.
at this time because this was not that long ago. But he said that he had read the script for The Babysitter. And when he met with her on Skype, she was talking about having done and he was like, you got that role? He was like, okay, if you did that, you're going to be up for anything. And he kind of said the same thing about Ash versus Evil Dead, that you're just going to be down. And that's what we need for this character.
Okay.
And Samara Weaving had said in that little, nibble making of featurette, she had said that when she read it, she realized that this was a character that had no limitations. And the thought of taking that on scared her. But her advice was, when something scares you like that, you should just do it.
Right.
Which I liked. I thought that was cool.
I like it. I don't know that I could do it.
Yeah. I'm trying to be a person that does it.
It's very hard.
But when Derek finally enters and sits across the long table from her, she is composed. Derek opens the file, skimming a foreclosure notice and looking at a photo of a blue house. Clicking his pen, Derek asks how he can help. Her answer at the ready, Melanie states that her client wants to pay to reverse the foreclosure, but they need TSC to tell the bank to give them more time. Derek informs her that their client has a firm no refinance policy, prompting Melanie to ask what to tell her client. Derek inquires if she would be open to discussing the possibility of a deed in lieu. Melanie, like me, does not seem to understand what the hell he's talking about, and she just stares back at him. Unsurprised, Derek assumes that she doesn't know what he's talking about. Gathering the paperwork up, he advises her to see a lawyer. When Melanie counters that she is a lawyer, Derek reasons that if she were, she'd know what a deed in lieu was.
She tried it.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, you should have studied before you came.
Yeah, you should have. Well, and he knew exactly. He knew immediately.
It's like a truffle pig.
Yeah, he sniffed it out. But he asks, "You're one of the borrowers, aren't you?" Facade broken, Melanie drops her head and asks what a deed in lieu is. But Derek tells her that it doesn't matter. The bank wouldn't agree to it anyway. Melanie scoffs at this and reaches in her bag for a cigarette. As she lights it, Derek tells her that she's not the first borrower to try to pull a scam like this. That was a little surprising to me because this is very outside the box. I wouldn't have thought to do this. Yes, I'm a lawyer. It's probably because I'd get sniffed out the second.
Well, but the thing is I don't really think that's a scam necessarily. It's and there's no laws against posing as a lawyer, are there?
I don't think you're allowed to pose as a lawyer.
I'm going to do it today.
Yeah.
Just to see what happens.
I'd walk in and be like, "Hi, I'm attorney Vasquez, and I love that floor hole you guys have."
Like, oh, you are not a lawyer. Well, she's definitely not an architect.
Yeah.
She could be an attorney. I don't know.
But he tells her sternly that this is a non-smoking room. And after taking a drag, Melanie tells him with a smug smile, "So come and stop me, suit." Which I was like, you still need this guy.
Yeah. Not Nicole.
Your cover's been blown, but he still might be able to help you. Derek just closes the file and starts to leave the room. Trying a new angle, Melanie pleads with him to wait as she drops her cigarette into the glass of water. As it hisses, Melanie tries to reason with him. There are families involved, but no one cares about that. The banks don't care and the lawyers don't care. She says that she can't even get past their secretaries. Derek tells her that he's sorry this is happening to her, and Melanie implores him to not kick her out then. Derek counters that the bank is kicking her out, and when Melanie says that the bank is his client, he corrects her. The bank is the firm's client, and the firm's partners call the shots. Melanie's like, "You shame me."
He's gonna see him in the parking garage.
Yeah.
But regretfully, Melanie says that no one raindrop thinks it caused the flood. She tells Derek that her mother used to say that, and with some bitterness, she says that now she understands what it means.
That is a great line.
It really is. Derek asks flatly if there's anything else he can do to help, and Melanie proposes starting with telling her the name of the partner on her case. Consulting the folder, Derek pauses when he sees the name at the bottom of the document, Irene Smythe. We see Irene Smythe, played by Carrie Fox, lighting a cigarette and hear Derek's voiceover lament, "Oh shit." He reports back to Melanie and she demands to talk with Irene Smythe right now. Derek offers to get her on the phone, but as soon as he starts dialing, we cut to Melanie being escorted out of the room by security. I was like, "That's shit." Yeah, we get her on the line.
Well, she wasn't going to leave.
She wrenches her arm away from them and screams for them to get off of her. Derek still sits at the head of the table in the meeting room as Melanie screams, vowing that this isn't over and promising to sue everyone. So this was filmed on the first day of shooting.
Wow.
Joe Lynch said, and all of it was shot out of order. Mm-hmm. he said that he wanted to give them something to kind of work together on that was more tame, kind of like a baseline.
I will say, and when we talked about it yesterday and you had told me that, I was very shocked to hear that.
Yeah, that it was filmed out of order.
Yeah, because this film seems like such a ratcheting of that tension of this virus to where it seems very difficult to keep people on track to say, this is where you need to be today or whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure. And once a few things get established, he had kind of like a cheat sheet to get around that. And that was a lot of Stephen Yeun's questions for the day is like, where are we at today? What's going on today? You know, because it is an escalation. Like we talked about, John Paul, you said momentum earlier.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So you can't kind of be backsliding, which I'm not gonna lie, they do a little bit of times. But they're just really good together. I love their characters together, and it only more so for me as the film goes on.
Mm-hmm. It's really the strong suit of the film.
Yeah, Joe Lynch calls them together the sugar that helps the medicine of this film go down.
I love it.
Which I thought was really cute. Yeah. But Derek picks up his glass of water, and suddenly we zoom in on the clear water of the pitcher and glass, where hundreds of that ugly little Edosia dartellum 7 viruses are floating inside. Derek takes a long drink from the glass, ignoring Melanie's screaming that he's in deep shit. Jenny comes in and closes the door behind her, echoing the same sentiment. He's in deep shit.
He is. He's got that V.
He does. Yeah. In the break room, as Derek searches the cabinets for his mug, Jenny tells him that she had to go to the penthouse to cover for another secretary, Brenda, because she wasn't feeling well.
Interesting.
Derek only appears to be half listening during his search, but his attention snaps to her when she reports that the boss was meeting with someone named Kara, and she's pretty sure they were talking about him fucking up a Vandacorp case. He closes the cabinet and turns to Jenny, surprised because he doesn't work Vandacorp. Kara does. Jenny's like, I know, right? It's like that. You're not helping. Yeah. Derek leaves the break room and immediately heads down the hall. But watching him angrily is Oswald, who rubs his incredibly red, bloodshot left eye. We watch the transmission of this virus through passing files, keyboards, phones, copy machines, and toilet handles before we see an elevator button being pushed. I do, as always, in scenes like this, have to call out that section of the stand where the Captain Trips virus is being passed from like somebody leaving a tip on a table and then the server bringing it home to her family, because that fucking traumatized me and I think about it way too often. And whenever I see shit like this, I think of that immediately.
I did a PSA for flu prevention.
I remember
when I was in college, and I that's all I was thinking about.
We cut to Derek stepping onto the elevator. Once inside, he identifies himself and asks for the access code to the 8th floor. When the voice on the intercom asks who he's trying to meet with, Derek's voiceover fills us in. Before we get into this executive elevator that becomes pretty important as it goes on is the elevator from the beginning with Derek and all his different iterations just redressed because they only had this one space available.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You can't even tell.
No, I wouldn't think twice.
No.
We see Director of Operations, Kara Powell, played by Carolyn Chikese, strutting through the office in slow motion. Derek compares her to Mussolini in terms of navigating internal company politics, though he points out that this isn't true when it comes to clients. Because of this, they call her the Siren because she's got the boss's ear and her songs are sweet poison. We see Kara whispering into the ear of the boss, John Towers, played by Stephen Brand, as he stares ahead steadily, and this pose is mirrored in a painting by Derek at his home, but a forked tongue slithers from Kara's lips. Derek focuses on putting the finishing touches on this painting, but he's pulled back into the elevator when the voice on the intercom says his name sternly.
So just a quick bit about casting. This actress who plays Kara, the Siren, she was in Lynch's previous film, Everly.
Okay.
Which also shot in Serbia. And so and the cinematographer also shot that film. So It's like a reteaming of a lot of these people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
But Stephen Brand, who plays Towers, he was cast 1 week into production.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they had already started filming, and they said that they were originally planning and hoping to cast Anthony LaPaglia, but he chose to do Annabelle Creation instead.
Okay.
And so they got Stephen Brand, who I believe was in The Scorpion King. I don't know if he was a scorpion or a king in it. I don't know. He could have played I don't know. But they got him, and that's another thing that's very fascinating to me whenever you get an actor into production and they just take to the role this well and this quickly. But they had even said that the set for his office that we're about to see, or possibly have already seen a little bit of, was the last one built. And so the set that was built was kind of around what was their production office in the building that they were shooting in.
Okay.
That's so cool.
Yeah. I really enjoy, not to go backwards a little bit, but his description of his coworkers with the paintings.
Yeah.
I really like that because I feel like, yeah, we're only getting his side of it, but once we meet the characters, it's like, oh no, that's why.
Yes.
And I feel like everybody's worked with some people like that. So
absolutely. Joe Lynch had said in one of the interviews I watched, this film is for anyone who's ever wanted to punch your boss in the face. And I was like, so everyone. But back in the elevator, hesitantly, Derek finally answers that he's trying to see Kara Powell. We see Derek on a surveillance screen as he's given the password, 785*95. Derek punches this into the keypad before requesting the 8th floor. The elevator doors finally close and begin to ascend. In her office, Kara walks on her standing desk treadmill, having traded her heels for running shoes. She speaks on the phone to Ray, the IT guy, and he complains about the dedicated office mobile app that she's tasked him to create with nothing. But she interrupts him, promising him that if he continues to offer her whining excuses, she'll have him back to building porn site banner ads by lunch. Derek knocks on the door and she waves him over to her desk as Ray offers no resistance. She throws in a couple insults, tasks him with updating the apps, and ends the conversation, calling him sweetie, but muttering asshole once he's hung up. But Derek has eyed a bright yellow coffee mug with a black handle sitting on Kara's desk.
So just to talk about this coffee mug for a little while. Not too long.
A little while.
Like 15 seconds tops. On commentary, Joe Lynch had said that he and Stephen Yeun were really trying to find the perfect look for this coffee mug because it is a character in and of itself.
okay.
And so what they settled on, and it was Stephen Yeun's idea, is that the colors of this mug are an homage to Bruce Lee's outfit from Game of Death.
Okay.
And so that's the yellow and black. But they didn't talk things over with the wardrobe. And so we'll see a character walk in who is also wearing yellow and black, which was not intentional.
Oh, shit. That's true. Kara turns her attention to Derek, but he only comments on the niceness of the mug. He asks where she got it. She says that she told her assistant to get her one, and Derek fires back, asking where the assistant got it. And Kara yells for the assistant, Meg, played by Claire Delamar, to come into the room. When Meg explains annoyed that she got the mug from a kitchen downstairs, Derek asks why she picked that one. As Kara settles into her chair, Meg says that it's the only one that wasn't filthy, and Derek challenges this, asking why she thinks that was the only one that wasn't filthy.
I do want to say, and this is just difficult office culture situation, because you can't leave anything anywhere. That's the thing.
Oh.
I think that maybe his assistant took it and washed it. I don't know, because he had expected it to be on his desk.
That is true. This is another reason to fire Miles. It's stacking up.
As Kara slips her heels back on, Meg guesses because the maid cleaned it. But Derek tells her that she's wrong. He cleaned it because it's his mug. Turning his attention to Kara, he continues, and what's mine is mine, and what's yours is yours. Kara looks confused, but wagers that he's getting to a point. He reminds her that Vandecorp is her client and the blood is on her hands. Kara sarcastically asks him, "So now you want to share?" She waves Meg out of the room, and Derek reasons that he can't share what's not his. Typing on her computer, Kara details that Vandecorp has filed over 100 account cases with them in the last 2 years. When Derek says that he hopes they have a good case manager, Kara corrects him. Not manager, managers. She reveals that no one can work a client that big without delegating. She references the annual work distribution sheet, and when Derek counters that hasn't been updated in years, Kara still turns her screen to him, providing proof that one of the Vandecorp complaint cases was assigned to him. She says that it was file 45A, and Derek nods in understanding. He's being set up.
This is just office politics run amok. It's disgusting.
It's egregious because she doesn't give a fuck.
No, just setting him up for firing, basically.
Yeah.
And I will say, I know I was critical of the script in the intro portion, and there are several things that I am critical of still. But I do like the way that this scene was written. I like him using this mug as a segue into...
Yeah.
That was a very smart writing.
Mm-hmm.
Kara searches through a drawer in her cabinet and produces file 45A. Looking it over, she muses that heads are gonna roll. Derek snatches the file away from her and quickly deduces that it was planted. Kara doesn't even blink. She only offers to cut him a deal if he pleads guilty. But Derek maintains that he's not guilty. And when Kara reminds him that the corpse was found in his office, he counters that it was her that knew just where to find it. She asks if he wants to take this upstairs, and he takes her up on it.
Now, this is a difficult task because we've already established that she has the boss's ear.
Exactly.
You did a whole painting on it.
Derek, you know better than anyone. As they step into the elevator, Kara asks if they should use her key card or his before she feigns remembering that Derek doesn't have the clearance. She scans her card and pushes the button for the penthouse. She croons to the file, promising that its daddy is going to pay for abandoning it in the dumpster. But Derek says that actually the file drowned because mommy left it in the bathtub while she went shopping for shoes. But don't worry, daddy will make mommy pay. But Kara reminds Derek that mommy outranks daddy. But Derek calls mommy a backstabbing bitch. I was like, okay,
all right.
This is, all right.
We've lost the metaphor. And the metaphor was bad to begin with.
But Kara takes this in stride, remarking that that's exactly why mommy outranks daddy. Once they reach the penthouse level, Derek follows Kara past the reception desk, but he asks the secretary, Brenda, played by Anna Marie Serta, what the boss's mood is. When Brenda says that he's drawing, Derek takes this as a bad sign.
So this is a love story now, right?
Yes.
I think they're divorced.
Yeah.
From what I can glean from this elevator.
And they share custody of that file.
Yeah.
But as they step into his office, Derek's voiceover introduces us to John Towers, aka the T and TSC. He describes him as both the king of the castle and a total fucking maniac. A typical American success story. John stands behind his desk with his back to them as Derek and Kara take their seats. I did want to piggyback on what you said about setting up that office at the end, this office. Joe Lynch said that the production designer had 24 hours to make that production room into this office. And he said that if you look closely at the walls, you can see like glue on the paneling and how it's not quite set.
Wow.
Yeah, Stephen Yeun was like, well, don't tell them because nobody noticed. And he was like, no, I quoted him, this isn't a fucking Marvel movie. He wanted it to be clear that like we were fucking in the trenches, basically.
Yeah.
Look, and I appreciate that, and they did say a few things critical of Marvel on
Oh.
Well, the thing is that literally like Marvel, and this is one thing they did give credit to with Marvel, which is something that they discovered. They have a lot of pickup shots in this film that were actually filmed in LA and put into this film because they didn't think of it on the day. Or they're like, this sequence doesn't work without this insert shot. And so they credited Marvel a little bit because Marvel leaves room in their schedule for pickups specifically. But it's also the whole fucking film is a pickup a lot of the time because you have a bar scene and even the stool isn't real.
Yeah.
So you're like, you can just fill in whatever the fuck you want and nothing is real. Everything's imagined. I hate it.
Okay.
I wasn't on the commentary, but I'm saying I don't hate Marvel. I just don't like that nothing is real.
Yeah.
This isn't Strawberry Fields, motherfucker.
It is a bummer.
It is a bummer. Make a set.
Yeah.
Make a costume.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It sucks.
We're covering Mayhem.
Yeah,
right?
but we're back to Mayhem, where they were gluing the paneling on the production room walls.
Yes, I respect it.
At the last minute.
Yes.
Towers turns around with a sketch pad that shows 3 stick figures with helmets running away from a bomb whose fuse is sizzling down to nothing. Derek asks if he's mentioned that Towers dabbles in the fine arts.
Now I have to contradict everything I've just said.
Okay.
Because I learned on commentary that this drawing is CG.
Oh.
They had said, I guess, the drawing on the day, there was something up with the helmets that they didn't really like. And so they changed it in post. And then on commentary, they also said that this film features 892 shots of visual effects.
Well,
Yeah.
I can probably guess what the bulk of it is.
I would, yes.
Yeah. But referring to the drawing, Towers invites them to tell him what they see. Diplomatically, Kara comments that the soldiers' lives are in danger. John asks if she thinks they'll make it, and Kara says that they don't. It's too late to run because the fuse is too short. Towers asks what they should be doing instead, and rather than answer, Kara continues the drawing. When John turns it back around, Kara has drawn a 3rd stick figure. Its helmet flies off as it throws its body on top of the bomb. Towers muses that it's so simple, yet so effective. He asks Derek if he sees the solution to their problem, but Derek tries to correct him. It's not their problem. It's Kara's problem. Towers slams down the sketch pad and instructs Kara to hand him file 45A. Holding it up, he explains that this file is their bomb. The fuse is already burning, so should they run like cowards and die? Kara purrs that they are brave, and Towers commends her. He's so glad she said that, because Vandecorp is going to find out about this, and he's going to need scalps. He tosses the file over the drawing and asks who dropped the ball. Innocently, Kara admits that she doesn't want to point any fingers, but maybe he should check the annual work distribution sheet. I'm like, you are fucking, you're evil,
That's
dude.
wild. I will say the scalps line, I did hear on commentary that a lot of times between filming, Joe Lynch, Stephen Yeun, and Samara Weaving would hang out together and watch Tarantino films. That has to be something, right?
I'm sure from Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
Derek spits back that someone cooked the fucking worksheet before quietly slapping a sir on top. Towers eyes him and encourages him to continue. And Derek asks him if he's ever noticed that whenever there's a problem like this, it always seems to be the same soldier involved. Eyeing Kara, he tells Towers that in the trenches, they've noticed, and maybe dispatching that one soldier would be the key to this never happening again. Towers asks who the soldier might be, and Derek illustrates his answer instead. On the soldier throwing themselves on the bomb, Derek draws lipstick, Kara's slick hairstyle, heels, and a pair of boobs.
I think the red dress would have sufficed. Like, well, Derek, these inappropriate drawings, you're
fired.
Everyone uncomfortable. So, problem solved, really.
Towers thanks him for his input and tells him that he can leave before turning to Kara and telling her that they'll discuss this. Derek tries to say more, but Towers emphatically insists that he leave. Derek gets up and walks out of John Towers' office. He pokes his head into the office of Ewan Niles, played by Mark Frost. Ewan waves him in, but he has his headphones on and keeps his eyes closed as he finishes a meditation session.
So on commentary, they said when the script was given to Stephen Yeun and his management, they thought that they wanted him to play Ewan.
Oh.
Oh, all right.
Wow.
That's surprising because I like Mark Frost as the character of Ewan.
Yeah.
I thought he did a great job. We don't get a lot of them, but what we do, I feel like he gives off what his part's supposed to be.
It's like a palate cleanser
Yeah.
because all the rest of these people are fucking awful.
Yeah.
But once he finishes, Derek points to a new photo of Ewan's son and is shocked that he's walking already. But Ewan says he's actually wobbling like Derek was on Friday night. Derek thanks him for the ride and Ewan sarcastically thanks him for puking in his car. He asks Derek what's going on. And when he tells him that he found someone else's shit swept under his carpet, Ewan wants to know what kind of shit. Rubbing his eye, Derek reveals that it's Vandecorp shit, and it's a 7-figure mistake when he never even touched the file. Ewan tries to dismiss this as no big deal because of the clowns working the Vandecorp accounts. But when Derek interrupts and tells him that it was the siren, Ewan switches gears and proposes that they start to strategize. He says that since his promotion, Derek could conceivably be big enough to be put on a case like that, but still not be big enough to be untouchable. This would make him the perfect fall guy for Kara. He tries to tell him what to do before taking this upstairs, but he can tell by the look on Derek's face that his advice is too late. He asks Derek if he told them that he punched a rhino in the face, would he think that that was brave or stupid? Derek thinks that it would be brave and stupid, and Ewan points out how bravery and stupidity can overlap. He picks up his phone, wondering if he can call her to get Derek a deal. But as he's typing in the number, Derek tells him that Kara already offered him a deal, but he decided on war. They're interrupted when the door opens and Kara struts in, announcing to Derek, "War is over, moron." She tells him that natural selection happened and that it's time to pack his shit.
Were you listening
She was
outside?
She was like, "I'm gonna wait." And
Oh, well, yeah.
you got to time the entrance. Derek is incensed, but Ewan tells him to calm down. Instead, Derek accuses her of doming towers out.
All right. A little decorum.
That was decorum. But she chuckles.
Don't do this to me. Don't ruin my words.
Adjusting his tie, she informs him that she doesn't need to stoop to that level and tells Derek to get the fuck out of her face before turning and casually walking out of Ewan's office. Derek yells after her, promising that he's taking this to the 9. Kara rubs her eye, and when she pulls her finger away, we see that it is bright red. She sarcastically wishes him luck, and with nothing else, Derek yells that he wants his mug back.
I will say the movement of the camera when Kara enters the office, as it goes around and the whole scene takes place, the movement distracts you from looking at her eyes at all.
Yeah.
And so when this reveal does happen when she leaves, it is kind of an oh shit moment.
Yeah.
You see how much it's spreading like wildfire throughout this place.
Yeah.
And it had to happen, I'm guessing, around the same time because he just rubbed his eye a second ago.
Yeah. And Joe Lynch had said on that commentary that they were going to have everybody wear contacts
Oh, instead of...
for the red eye.
Oh, okay.
And then they realized that that wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
So they said that somebody had to come in and put like an orb in the room and scan every part of the room in any scene where somebody needed to have a red eye. And then they added all of the eyes digitally.
Okay.
And I think sometimes it looks really great and sometimes it doesn't look as great.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, their eye's super red in one scene and it's just not very red in the next thing. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, it gets the job done.
Yeah.
And this is the color pop that really worked in the black and white section.
Yeah.
That's what I'm really thinking of as far as if they were to have done the whole thing.
Yeah.
How cool that would have looked.
It would have, her walking away and then it's black and white and just the one eye's red. Yeah, that would have been cool. We cut to a boardroom where Towers stands in front of a full table. Derek identifies these people as the 9. He says that no one here goes up or down without their vote. It's even alleged that they're cybernetic organisms, but that hasn't been confirmed.
Oh, okay. They're not Slipknot either?
No. Towers presents them with the offending file 45A. He passes the folder to the partners, played by Irfan Mansour, Bronso Yeranik, Zoran Milkovich, Danica Radjuvelitz, Eileen Vine, Brendan Stokey, Yulbimor Todorowicz, and Monica Romick.
I did hear on commentary, Lynch had said that the 9 are played by some of the best actors in Serbia.
Oh, very nice.
Like trained theater experience, all of this. Mm-hmm. But they really are kind of relegated, as he said, to glorified extras.
Yeah. Well, he was like, and they don't say a fucking word on the commentary. And if I butchered any of those names, I'm sorry. I did my best. But they pass the file down to each other, some rubbing their eye and some shaking their head in disapproval as they look it over. Towers tells them that his vote would be to hang, draw, and quarter the person responsible, but they all have a say. Derek educates us that there is a misconception about the death gesture in gladiatorial combat. In the Roman texts, it wasn't a thumbs up or a thumbs down, but a turned thumb, because the winners killed their opponent with a sword thrust across their throat. Towers calls for a vote, and one by one, the partners drag a turned thumb across their necks. With the unanimous decision, Towers uses the intercom to call Lester. We see this Lester using a cane to stroll past the cubicles as Derek describes him. Lester, the Reaper McGill, played by Dallas Roberts, handles the layoffs firmly and efficiently. In Derek's painted depiction of him, he holds a scythe instead of a cane as he strolls on a pile of skeletal corpses while papers are strewn in the air around him.
Again, the painting looks very cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about this actor, Dallas Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
We probably recognize him from The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think he was also in 3:10 to Yuma. He's been in a lot of things.
Yeah.
But his inclusion in this film, Lynch had said that Roberts was currently in London at this time because his wife was the production designer for the Harry Potter musical that they were making. And so he was just at home watching his kids.
Mm-hmm.
And they called him for the part because I guess they could only have 3 SAG actors total brought to Serbia. And so he was one of them, if I'm not mistaken. And they had this deal where a lot of the cast outside of Samara Weaving and Stephen Yeun were only brought in for like 2 or 3 days.
Damn.
And so he's, not currently working. He's watching his kids in London, and then he can just fly over to Serbia for a couple days, film his part, and be done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was basically what not only enticed them to bring him in, but also his credits and then being a big fan of his previous work.
Okay.
But they had somebody in mind that they wanted to play him before Dallas Roberts came in, and it's a very unorthodox choice. They had mentioned it on commentary. They wanted the author Bret Easton Ellis.
Okay, that is because I said that I was going to talk about Bret Easton Ellis later.
Right.
He did not say that on the commentary that I watched. He said that in his mind, this character was like a Bret Easton Ellis character. The Reaper was.
Uh-huh.
So he said that when Dallas Roberts stepped into the role, he was like, he looks like Bret Easton Ellis. So that's what he said. And then he said that because he was a big fan of his ever since he read Less Than Zero.
Okay.
And he said that they had become friends and that Bret Easton Ellis watched Mayhem and told Joe Lynch that it was okay.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Friend.
Well.
It's all right.
But Derek describes Lester as the last person you want to see in your doorway, but that's exactly where he is when he comes to his destination. He taps on Derek's office door with the handle of his cane and asks to come in. Derek's head is lowered to his desk and his voice is muffled when he asks Lester, "If I say no?" But Lester just thanks him as he walks inside. He sets a blue folder on the desk and opens it to reveal a smiling photo of Derek inside. Defeated, Derek asks if he even knows what happened, and when Lester answers honestly and nonchalantly that he doesn't care, Derek presumes that he must be a good friend of Kara's. At this, Lester stops looking through a folder on Derek's cabinet and counters that he hopes Kara dies, promptly.
I just want to say he clearly knows about his nickname because he's hamming it up.
No, I think he loves it. Derek says that he's glad they're on the same page. He says that the 9 listened to Lester and he has proof that this was not his fault, but Lester just instructs Derek to sign the paper in the file that he's presented him. Derek realizes now that Lester is on Kara's side, but Lester corrects him. He's just on the right side. He always is. That's why he's the one firing Derek, and Derek is the one being fired. Rubbing his eye, Derek sits back in his chair and offers, "Fuck you." Lester stays calm, instructing Derek to sign so that he can have his severance pay transferred to his bank account. Still rubbing his eye, Derek looks over the paperwork. He tells Lester that it's stating that he's taking full responsibility for the Vandecorp mess, but Lester just offers to file this under N for not his problem. Emotion overtaking him, Derek pleads with Lester that he could be disbarred or even face legal action from Vandecorp. His voice irritatingly soothing, Lester reminds him that he's just the messenger. Yelling at him is like yelling at your watch because you're late. That's a really good line.
Yeah.
But I would punch him in the face.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say, but I would yell at my watch.
Derek asks why he would sign this, and Lester answers by placing another paper in front of him. He tells him simply, to get rich. Derek continues to rub his eye, understanding now, and Lester takes this to mean that now they're on the same page. But Derek says that he's not. Lester takes this to mean that Derek wants to do this the hard way, and Derek tells him that he just wants to do it the right way. He wants to talk to John Towers and the 9. With his composure a little shaky for the first time, Lester tells Derek that executive decisions aren't subject to appeal, but Derek counters that this one fucking better be, because he's not leaving this building until he's pleaded his case. Lester stands and says only, "Understood," before tapping the handle of his cane on Derek's desk. He leaves the room, but a security guard comes in behind him with a box to gather his things. At the sight of him, Derek slams his hand down on the table in anger and rips up the agreement that Lester tried to get him to sign.
I enjoy a lot of this film, I will say.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked this scene and the interplay between these two actors. Does it feel as it continues that there are like no stakes to this film? Or is it just me?
What do you...
Where like I just as things progress and continue, because what we're really starting like this whole thing with Derek and this character arc and this thing of him being railroaded and everything, and it's like, okay, so we're kind of making it to where this is the most important thing is this thing. But I don't know why it just feels like it's really setting up something that is not completely necessary for the fun of the film. We're putting all this corporate stuff in here to maybe do some social commentary that we don't really do a lot of. And then it just kind of becomes, it's not trying to do too much, but it feels like you're putting a lot of focus on this thing at the front that really doesn't matter all that much as we continue.
I think that it just helps with his character arc because he's pleading for help just like Melanie was pleading for help. And when he could maybe help her, he's like, security. And same thing with Lester. He maybe could help Derek, but he's like, security.
Yeah.
I think it's just like you chose to be a cog in this machine, but this machine doesn't fucking need you.
I get the parallel. I think my thing is just as it continues, and it's just me. And it probably sounds like mean, but I don't mean it this way. I just kind of don't care. But it's not meant in a mean way. It's just that I think that the machinations behind the plot kind of become secondary.
I can see that. I just think that it makes it kind of just makes you care about Derek a little bit more. It makes him more sympathetic because like as this goes on and the stakes that are like the impunity that's been set, it's Derek's fault.
Well, yeah,
like nationally, it's his fault. You know what I mean? So we kind of need to feel something for him, I think.
Right. And for me, it moves the story along. If there's no reason for him to get revenge on anything or for him to be upset about anything, he's just another one of these extras in the back tearing paper or, you know what I mean, fighting somebody.
I think that's why I feel like it's just a me thing, because I feel like we could set up much more to go by way of commentary.
Okay.
And spending all this time on it, I feel like it's kind of setting it up to not really do that much.
Well, I think that...
Except for character.
Yeah, I think that you nailed it, that it's just like, okay, that... Why is he so mad? Why is he trying to get up there?
Yeah, we just got to push him.
Yeah.
We got to move the story. That's it.
Elsewhere in Towers and Smythe, people are walking around and going about their day. These shots of mundanity are broken up by a SWAT team racing toward the building. He did say on the commentary that I watched that the SWAT team was played by the Serbian National Guard.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, and he said that it was a whole long thing where they had to all open all of their weapons to show that there was nothing in them, that they were just like props.
Yeah.
And he was like, it took forever. He said it was like something out of, he said The Expendables or something like that, where it was just what they carry and what they have was wild. But this is actually the National Guard.
Damn.
They had said as well that some of these shots, the close-ups of tires and stuff, these are insert shots filmed in Los Angeles.
They flow.
They
Yeah.
do. The way that it's edited together is really, really good.
Yeah, that I know you've been saying that, but that is, again, for me too, what helps a lot of the movie is how the editing moves.
Mm-hmm.
But once they reach Towers and Smythe, they jump out of their vehicles, guns raised and pointed at the people walking out of the building. With their weapons and aggressive dogs, they force everyone back inside. Officials from the CDC arrive in their white hazmat suits and begin to unfurl bright yellow tape marked with the warning, "Quarantined area." Inside, in a direct reversal of his first hopeful day on the job, a defeated Derek clutches a box full of his belongings as he's escorted off the elevator by security. Almost immediately after reaching the ground floor, the clamoring and panic make it clear that something is very wrong. We glide past the group that was just forced back inside Towers and Smythe and see the armed SWAT team with their guns still aimed on the front doors. Snipers position themselves on a roof, and the yellow tape alerts everyone to keep their distance. Derek asks, "What the?" And the sentiment is finished in the boardroom by John Towers with his bright red eye. Hell is going on. The 9 sit behind him, but on the screen in front of him, CDC official played by Ola Hrustic explains. One of their pathogen sniffers in the ventilation system picked up traces of the virus. Towers demands to know who gave them the authority to install the system in his building, but she explains calmly that after the outbreak in Des Moines, they're mandatory. In the lobby, people move around Derek, who blinks his eye like it's irritated. The CDC official continues to explain that the people in the building will soon be showing signs if they're not already. As if to prove this, Derek is abruptly ambushed by Oswald, who comes out of nowhere and punches him in the face. In the boardroom, Irene Smythe's face is etched in concern, but her left eye is blood red. The official assures them that a neutralizing agent has been released into the ventilation system, and within 8 hours, all traces of the virus should be eliminated. At her promise of this, a timer marking 8 hours pops into the lower left corner and begins to count down. The CDC official tells Towers that until the 8 hours is up, the building is going to need to remain under quarantine. Towers is still pissed, demanding to know what they're supposed to do for the next 8 hours. She smoothly tells him to try to remain calm. So this is how, because like I said, this was shot completely out of order. Joe Lynch said that they made this like sign that had all of the stages of this virus.
Mm-hmm.
And so stage 1, they had that you're itchy, irritable, and sweaty. Stage 2, you're starting to say things without really realizing it. Stage 3, you lose all inhibition. Stage 4 is full rage mode. And stage 5 is the come down. So every day they would check in, primarily Stephen Yeun, he said, where am I at? You know, depending on what they were shooting that day. He did also say that he was not allowed to talk to any of the extras or else they would have to be paid as actors.
Interesting.
So he would have to tell the assistant director to tell the extras what stage they're supposed to be at for the day. And he said that watching it, he always sees 1 or 2 in the background that aren't quite where he wanted them to be. But he said that there was a language barrier. A lot of these people are Serbian. I don't know if the assistant directors could communicate with them properly, but it just hearing him talk about these stages, it did remind me, because we just covered it, of them talking about kind of doing the same thing on Dawn of the Dead 04.
Oh yeah.
As far as the decomp with the zombies, and them describing the stages as far as the makeup, you're like, oh yeah, I see that. I don't fully see these stages that he's talking about here. Again, this is the fucking sadness. This is mayhem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this, I feel like it's a more kind of like subdued and like funny representation of it. Not that death and fighting is funny, but the way that it's portrayed in this is a lot more lighthearted than what it would be if this group of people really had all of their inhibitions erased and every impulse is acted upon, that you can't have control of it. You know?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's not fully, as you're saying, explored or exploited, that premise. Because it seems like, especially with our main cast, kind of has the ability to just turn it on and off.
We can kind of toggle. Maybe that's on purpose, and it's not quite as you're completely surrendered to it, and that kind of makes Derek even worse, because he did say that he thought Neville Reed was guilty as fuck, even though he did get him off. But I feel like even like through the news, we're being presented in this way. And I'm not going to say that I wish they had done it that way, because that would be a completely different movie. It would not be a fun movie.
No.
It would probably be an extremely upsetting movie. But it just is like, you know, don't say all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I will say as well, I think that's also what I kind of mean when I say that there aren't really stakes.
Right.
Because there is a period of time that you experience this and then it's done. It's what you do where things can be, you know, awful, but it's not as if you have it, you've got it.
Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of the difference there between something like The Purge and 28 Days Later. You know what I mean? The Purge, you can choose to participate. And this, it's making it like you don't have a choice, but like maybe you do have a choice.
Yeah.
But in the lobby, Derek is still on the ground getting kicked in the ribs by Oswald. We freeze in a "you're probably wondering how I got here" moment. And Derek says that he was getting his ass kicked, but he screams that, and then something happened. Derek opens his eyes. One is as red as the blood trickling from his nose, and as he screams, he snatches up half a broken pair of scissors and stabs it right through Oswald's shoe. As Oswald screams, we cut back to the boardroom. Towers asserts that he doesn't want to remain calm. He wants this fixed. In the lobby, Derek throat punches Oswald, and when he goes down, Derek tries to continue his pummeling, but he's pulled back by Ewan, whose eye is also red. When Derek turns toward him aggressively, Ewan assures him that it's just him. Derek yells that he thinks he just punched a rhino in the face, which I loved that.
Yeah.
Frantic, he explains that he attacked him, so Derek kicked his ass. He turns around and punches out a random man standing behind him and is like, whoa! His first order of business in his frenzy is to go talk to the Nine. Ewan grabs him by his jacket and slams him against the wall, telling him not to do it. He promises Derek that his getting fired is a blessing in disguise because Derek does not want to end up like him. Still yelling, Derek counters that Ewan's got it all figured out, but Ewan denies this. He says that the meditation and incense are all bullshit. He doesn't even like the taste of kale. He's dead inside.
That's a great. I will say with Ewan and his reaction, because he is infected too.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it is that meditation.
Yeah.
That is keeping him
I love that.
in control. But then, you know, everybody else, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you would figure from now on, Derek is starting to feel it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's going to soon lose control.
And that it would only get worse from here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Derek pleads that the Nine have him all wrong and he has to tell them. And Ewan warns that Derek has no idea what they can do. He advises him to just hide out in his office until the virus subsides. Then Derek needs to walk out the doors and never come back. He says that he will be free as a bird. Derek pants as he agrees, and Ewan starts to walk off, expecting him to follow, but Derek scurries away as soon as Ewan's back is turned. Ewan tries to sweeten the deal by offering to put some peanut butter in Derek's wheatgrass shot. But when he turns and finds Derek gone, he screams, "Motherfucker," as the chaotic crowd swirls around him. I did want to point out, Joe Lynch said, and Stephen Yeun kind of co-signed, that as often as he could have the actors do their own stunts, they did.
Oh, wow.
That there was very little, you know, of the stunt workers stepping in for them. And that leads to, he said that he and Stephen Yeun had one blow up the entire shoot. And we'll get to that later.
Okay.
Back in the boardroom, the CDC official tasks the owners with giving their cooperation to keep the situation under control during the quarantine. Smythe spits back that they know better than anyone that the virus turns people into maniacs and idiots. The CDC official lets the 9 and us know that the virus breaks down the moral barrier and releases repressed emotions like anger, depression, fear, or lust. Once again, Derek told us this.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
But laughing, Towers asks if it's like cocaine, but the official counters that this virus makes a cocaine addict look like a model citizen. Rubbing her red eye, Smythe says that they all feel normal, but the official warns of the mood swings that could escalate to violence. As Towers rubs his eye, we see several pairs of employees engaging in physical altercations, punching, pushing, and putting each other in headlocks. A woman yells on a phone, promising the person on the other end that she's going to come to their house and fucking kill them, before revealing that she's speaking to her mother.
That was great.
Really funny.
They said on commentary that gets the biggest laugh every single
As the CDC official reveals that antidepressants, stimulants, and caffeine can accelerate the virus, we see other employees acting manic, strange, cagey, and afraid. Kara rips open the door to her office and yells at Meg to make more fucking coffee before slamming the door. Paperwork is thrown down the floor hole with reckless abandon. Mm-hmm. Now we're all on the same page about the floor hole.
Yeah, we're still there.
All right. In the boardroom, Towers asks what happens when 287 employees with average billing rates of $200 an hour stop working for 8 hours. He takes a golf club from his bag and lines up a shot on the ground. When no one answers him, he looks around the room, asking if they don't know. Startling the rest of the 9, seemingly with the exception of Smythe, Towers brings the club down hard on the long wooden table, leaving a dent. He screams the answer at them. He loses $500,000. He declares that everyone needs to go back to work. Anyone who doesn't like it needs to be immediately terminated with no severance. He tells them, put the fear of me into them.
See, I understand the inhibitions and all that, but it just seems like he's acting like he is normal. Like this is
Yeah.
Nothing really changes in the boardroom. Maybe there's a block in there.
Maybe. On the intercom, Brenda alerts Towers that Derek Cho wants clearance to the penthouse. She says that he's reconsidered, but he wants to speak with Towers and the 9 first. Towers' angry voice reports back to Derek in the elevator. Your passcode is 8*199, fuckhead. Derek types this in feverishly on the keypad, and the button for the penthouse glows red as he pushes it. He looks into the little mirror next to the buttons and screams, fuck you. But I'm like, dude, this thing is me. This isn't the way to get up there. And when he realizes that the elevator is going down instead of up to the penthouse, he yells at them to take him up.
He should have known. Come on, they weren't really going to do that.
I mean,
it's like The Shining when he's like, I'm just going to bash it right the fuck out. Suddenly, he is snatched off the elevator and we are with Derek in a blue-tinged basement. Colton Snyder, a.k.a. The Bull, played by Andre Erickson, throws him inside as Derek's voiceover identifies him as Towers' unofficial left hook. Although no one knows the Bull's exact job, whenever there's something dirty going on, he's involved.
I found it odd he didn't get a painting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
That's
I wonder
true.
why.
Yeah, I think he's the only one with the nickname that doesn't.
Yeah.
Snyder lifts Derek, but only to punch him and send him crashing to the ground again. He instructs the goons behind him to take Derek's phone, and as he whimpers and cries on the ground, it's confiscated from him. On the commentary, Joe Lynch said that Andre Erickson's fighting was terrible. And Stephen Yeun was like, well, he was probably trying not to actually hit me. But he said that he had to put him through fight training.
Okay.
Because the punches were so far away that they just did not look convincing at all. But Stephen Yeun volunteered to do it with him. And so they did it together.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. But one of the other men takes his own phone and sets it on the table with the boss on speaker. Towers feigns sympathy when he tells Derek that he's so sorry they didn't get a chance to meet again, but things came up. Towers speaks to Derek from his office. He says that he knows that Derek was thinking that Neville Reed got away with murder, so maybe he could try too. He asks Derek if he really thinks he didn't see that coming. Struggling to lift himself up, Derek says that he was just going to ask for his job back, but he likes Towers' idea too. Derek is lifted back up, punched, and then dropped onto the ground. Towers laughs, musing that sounded like it hurt. He asks if Derek is hurt, and Snyder reports that he is. Towers asks if Derek is crying, and after checking, Snyder says no. The boss yells, demanding to know why Derek isn't fucking crying. So Snyder pepper sprays Derek. Derek screams, and Snyder reports that he's crying now.
Yeah, I would think so.
Smiling, Towers moves along like he's ordering from a menu. Now he wants to hear a bone break. He shares that the femur is the most difficult bone to break, but he'd even settle for a pinky. Derek screams, but the reinforcements have arrived. With a roar that he's coming, Ewan charges into the room, tackling Snyder's goon. Towers' smile drops from his face, and he's like, what's happening?
What makes me laugh is that, you heard some screams. You've been hearing screams.
Yeah.
So for him to be like, oh, wait, hold the phone. Hold the phone.
Somebody else. Yeah. Ewan pummels the goon until he's pulled off by Snyder and promptly made short work of. Snyder punches Ewan before throwing him back on a pile of wooden planks leaning against a wall. As he falls back, a nail sticking out of one of the boards is firmly implanted in the back of Ewan's skull. Derek finally raises himself to look at his friend, whose eyes have grown wide with shock and horrible understanding. Towers yells for someone to tell him what the fuck is going on. Okay, so this right here, and I don't remember this movie well, I'm not going to lie. I wonder if it's a dark comedy enough for us to maybe cover it at some point.
Okay.
But I watched it too young, and something stuck in my head forever and ever. And whenever something like this happens, I think of it. But do you remember the movie Very Bad Things?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
With the head going back on the wall. Like I think I was way too young, and it really stuck in there. And so seeing shit like this, it always makes me think of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we shouldn't have watched that one.
No!
We did. Not at all. I'm going through the plot in my mind, and it's just one thing after another, really.
But no one tells Towers what's going on. Instead, Snyder pulls out a set of brass knuckles and twirls them around his finger. Meanwhile, Ewan has pulled himself up, taking the board with him. It really feels at this moment that, I don't know, and maybe it's just me, but this is so dark and so abrupt because we're just watching this like fight scene or whatever, and yeah, people are getting their asses kicked, but like, okay, him going back and the nail going into his skull and then him standing up and like stumbling and taking that board with him, it felt like this was going to be like the point of no return to like a really maybe like darker film.
Okay.
And it really doesn't. I think this is like maybe the most disturbing one for me, and we do see a pretty cool one later, but it did this one, I was like, oh fuck, like this is, it's like not, I don't know, like it's all fun and games until somebody gets a nail in their skull or whatever, but that's what it felt like. But it kind of just goes back to like a lot of people getting their asses kicked.
Yeah, and it is really gruesome for a character that we like as well.
Yeah.
Which I think maybe kind of lends to that feeling too.
Yeah.
But it's probably, the darkest thing, and then they're just like, well, now that we've gotten past that.
Yeah, but I guess again it serves for, motivation for Derek, I guess.
That, and maybe because it's like the only like friendship we really get in the movie, period.
And the only other likable person besides the main, two.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it does, in a way, kind of set up an issue that I do have with the film, where it does kind of set a thing and you're like, oh, you're really going to run with this. Not really.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because this, it really felt like, oh, this is wild. And then maybe because I'm thinking of how I felt watching Very Bad Things.
We were too young.
But Ewan stumbles forward with blood pouring from his mouth. With a confused look on his face, he stammers out that he smells toast before falling forward onto his face. Snyder's goons giggle, but Derek rushes to his friend, crying his name. Towers seems upset that Snyder killed Ewan, but Snyder just calls out flatly that there was an accident. Towers asks if he understands how many billable hours he's going to lose until he finds a replacement for him. For a minute, I was like, oh, everyone liked Ewan. And then it's like, oh, no, you just care about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, it's all you care about.
Yeah, because he did seem legitimately...
For a second.
Yeah.
For a second.
Yeah, then I was like, oh, no, it's the same thing.
Yeah. Drool falling from his lips, Derek groans and roars, his grief quickly transforming into white-hot anger. But Snyder isn't concerned with billable hours. His main focus is the body because he killed him. But Towers says that Snyder didn't kill anyone. The virus did. They set a precedent with Neville Reed, and they have Derek to thank for that.
All right. I just have to say the way that this line is delivered and trickles out, it's, again, information we already know.
Yeah.
But he goes, the virus killed him. You have impunity.
Yeah.
You have a precedent with Neville Reed. I'm like, yeah, dude. We spent 30 fucking minutes doing that. Or about.
Yeah, whatever.
Where about. But yeah, it's like you said.
Yeah, it's a lot. But Snyder does. Leaning forward, he says, "Thank you, Derek," before punching him in the back of the head. Everything goes black, and we hear the boss instruct Snyder to lock Derek up with the other one and then get back to him. When Derek regains consciousness, he's lying flat on his back on the floor of the basement. Metal music plays, muffled by headphones, but someone with blonde hair and a cream suit paces back and forth, banging her head. When Derek is able to look up at them, we see that it's Melanie, and her face contorts into disgust when they lock eyes, and she takes her opportunity to spit on him. She pulls out her headphones as Derek finally pulls himself to his feet. His response? To spit on her. She does the same thing back, and when his response is the same, she just punches him in the face. In retaliation, he punches her in the stomach, and this prompts her to scream and tackle him onto the ground, punching him repeatedly in the face. She demands to know what he's doing here, and he answers honestly, "They fired me." Melanie giggles at this and muses that justice was served for once. Derek yells up at her, wanting to know what she's doing here, and she explains that security called the police on her, but the quarantine was enforced before they showed up, so they threw her in here. She promises to sue everyone and their grandmother when she gets out, but Derek sarcastically wishes her good luck. He yells that it's ID7. No one's liable for anything they do.
I'm glad I didn't know that.
You die in the game, you die in real life. Melanie slaps him across the face and comments that that's just like any other day for him. Derek warns her that they're not liable for
This is getting a lot, dude.
Derek warns her that they're not liable for anything they do here either.
I think some people in the back didn't hear.
I'm sure we'll say it again. But Melanie is pleased by this. Now she can have his balls for dinner for that shit he pulled. She starts to smack him and screams when he restrains her arms, but he asks her to wait. He acknowledges that this might sound crazy, but they might be able to help each other out. He asks her if she remembers the name of the woman that screwed her over. Irene Smythe is up in the penthouse right now. This gets Melanie's undivided attention, and Derek continues. If Melanie can help him get up there, Irene Smythe is all hers. He tells her that this is their chance to hold the assholes accountable for all the damage they've done, but their chance is gone when the quarantine is over. Clearly having won her over, he asks if she'll let him up now. She asks if he's done being an asshole, and Derek jokes that that's debatable, but when she raises her hand to strike him, he agrees. Melanie stands and Derek catches his breath and laughs when she helps him back onto his feet. On the commentary, Joe Lynch talked about they kept tweaking this room over and over and over again until they were running out of time to film in it.
Oh, wow.
And so they only had an hour to do this scene right here. And they were like, look, maybe we should just do it somewhere else because if we need to come back down here, we can't.
Yeah.
And he was like, let's just do it and see what we can get. And I mean, they did.
Yeah.
He also talked about the spitting was in the script when he got it. And they left it when he and Caruso were tweaking it and stuff. But he said every step of the way, he expected either a producer or Stephen Yeun or Samara Weaving to be like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
But nobody said anything. And he was like, it came time to shoot and everybody was game. So he was like, okay. And Stephen Yeun was like, yeah, it was gross.
Well, yeah.
I didn't know that it was only an hour. That's why.
Yeah.
But he had said that their background in having been on television shows kind of helped them to film themes quicker, the actors. Because they're used to this turnaround.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And I'm in here with you beat up. I don't think that I'm your enemy anymore.
Yeah.
I think it'd be safe to say, it's like, oh, you're all fucked up. What happened?
Yeah.
You know?
She's like, no, fuck you.
Yeah.
But even with the virus, they seem to make friends pretty quickly.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. But Derek goes over to a stack of shelves and starts to look through boxes. Melanie asks what he's looking for, and he tells her, a loophole, my specialty. He celebrates when he finds a box of phones, but Melanie tries to bring him back down to earth. She doesn't think that they would lock them up in a room with working phones, but Derek doesn't need a working phone. Gathering pieces of the equipment, he says that he just needs a little of this and a little of that to make a Frankenphone. Melanie still doesn't understand the point. Cops can't enter the building, but Derek tells her that he's not calling the cops.
Have we established his handiness at all?
No.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering.
He's like, I'll paint us a phone.
Yeah. You know what? Maybe in the thing is paint. That's really good. I was going to say if in the elevator at the beginning, maybe say he worked his way up from the IT department. I don't know.
That would honestly work for something later too.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Or maybe the elevator like short circuits and he's like, I got it.
Frank-invader or whatever.
In his office, Towers snorts coke off his desk, but he's interrupted when Brenda enters the room. She reports that Derek Cho somehow set up a phone call with Vandecorp CEO and they want him to join. Towers wipes his nose and tries to compose himself, but when his eyes travel back down to his desk, he raises a finger at Brenda, telling her, in a minute, before lowering his nose back down. Composed and with his suit jacket on, still wiping at his nose, Towers takes his spot at the head of the table with the 9 in their seats. On the screen in front of them, the Vandecorp CEO Frank, played by Scott Alexander Young, presides over them. Towers apologizes for keeping him waiting, but with a smile, he promises that he's all ears. Frank says that he's glad Towers could join them because he's been having a nice long chat with one of his lawyers. So this is like kind of what I'm talking about, where it's like it's not consistent, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because if that CDC official said that caffeine can exacerbate the symptoms, mm-hmm. Towers is like doing mountains. He's fucking Scarface in this, okay?
Right.
He comes to the table. He sees the CEO. I feel like he should be like, fuck you, Frank. I fucked your wife or whatever. But he's like,
the virus.
You know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He puts his jacket on and he's like, hello, yes, I'm all ears. You know, it's like, you shouldn't be, Frank should be normal.
Yeah.
Towers should not be composed enough to, no. Like, you don't understand. Going forward, I'm just like, where, are you infected or are you not? Because I think that Neville Reed just wanted to kill that man.
Yeah, honestly.
It is something that I noticed after. I won't say that I didn't notice it here, but that it's just kind of apparent, period.
Yeah.
Because after some time, that is just our duo. That's certain characters. They just aren't as affected as everyone else around that's going crazy. Mm-hmm. Everybody else is still going nuts. But for some reason, this chosen bunch of people is not.
Yeah, well, I did read that in the CDC statement that it affects NPCs more.
Mm-hmm. That's starting to make a lot of sense. And I will say I do understand, of course, if we're talking about lowering the inhibitions.
Right.
And kind of whatever is inside of you is coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Even so, certain characters, like you could say, oh, well, Derek doesn't have it inside of him. It's like, well, but Towers, and you're telling me that not one of those stuffy motherfuckers of the 9 is not going to like take his dick out or something? They're doing nothing.
They're just sitting there.
Just chilling.
They look tired later. But that's it. You know what I mean? But as Frank speaks, we travel along the ceiling of the blue basement to find Derek standing with his Frankenphone pressed to his ear. Frank asks Derek if he's still there, and Derek, with Melanie standing behind him watching intently, assures him that he is. After confirming that Derek is still on the line, Frank shifts his attention to Towers. He asks for Towers to remind him why he does business with TSC. His nerves showing a little, Towers reminds Frank that it's a jungle out there, and not only does he need a guide, he needs a lion walking by his side.
He's rehearsed this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Smythe furrows her brow at this, but says nothing. With a smile, Towers informs Frank that they're both his lion and his guide. Frank asks, "Are you?" He admits that Vandecorp is a little concerned that TSC may have ulterior motives. Towers says that they would never turn against their clients, but Frank reveals that Derek has alerted him to a certain document that seems to suggest otherwise. Taking his cue, Derek chimes in. He explains that it's a report TSC did for Vandecorp that analyzes their advisability of filing a multi-million-dollar lawsuit against an ex-business associate of Frank's. Frank asks if Towers remembers this report, and his poker face crumbling, Towers says no. Frank admits that this report is well written. He especially likes how it weighs the slim possibility of financial outcome against the enormous potential litigation costs. Frank consults this report before asking Derek if he agrees with this assessment. Derek does not agree. In fact, he thinks Frank would have won the suit. As Smythe buries her head in her hands, Frank asks, why then did the advisors advise him against it? Derek explains exactly why. It's because the advisors missed the deadline to file the motion.
I just, again, with this virus boiling under their skin, Derek's like, I'm really going to hit him where he lives.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a very interesting tactic.
And Towers is like, gotta be cool, but gotta be cool. We haven't lost him yet.
Yes, sir. Yes.
We're your lion and whatnot. Frank puts it plainly, asking if Derek thinks that TSC dropped the ball on this one. Derek answers just as straightforward. He does believe they dropped the ball, but then they defecated on the ball, and then they sodomized the ball.
Derek, please.
But again, it's very, he's like, that'd be fun,
Yeah.
He's very calm.
And I think he says sir after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Melanie and Frank both chuckle quietly at this, and Frank calls the analogy interesting. Barely concealing his rage, Towers looks up at the screen when Frank calls his name. Frank holds up TSC's last invoice. He rips it in half before balling it in his fists and terminating the call. I did like how dramatically he reached out to hang up the phone. That did make me laugh. But the silence is thick in the boardroom, but down in the basement, Derek hangs up the phone and reports to Melanie that it went well. Melanie gives him an aggressive thumbs up. But back in the boardroom, Towers rises to his feet, demanding that they rip the phone from Derek's hands. Then they rip his hands off his fucking body. Now. In the commentary, Lynch talked about the different acting styles of Stephen Yeun and Samara Weaving. Mm-hmm. And he said that Stephen Yeun is an active actor and that Samara Weaving is a reactive actor. And so a lot of the faces that she makes and stuff when other shit is going down is all her. She was not directed to do any of that. And the thumbs up that she gives him after the call, all her.
Yeah.
Like she wasn't, it's just her kind of embodying this character.
Okay.
Well, she adds a lot of character.
She does. But two security guards saunter into the room where Melanie and Derek are being held. They find Melanie, her feet propped up on the filing cabinet, reclined in a chair with the phone to her ear. She orders pepperoni pizzas and hot wings. As the guards watch, Derek approaches them silently from behind with a huge wooden board.
They said this shot of Samara Weaving was one of their favorites because apparently they created a lens flare behind her with just a little piece of string. Mm-hmm. And it does look very neat. It's a very good shot.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Melanie throws in some garlic bread, and when she asks security if they want anything, Derek makes his move. He brings the board down hard against one man's back before tackling the other. As Derek rains punches down on the guard's face, images flash through his mind. Towers brings a club down hard onto his desk. Ewan spins in his chair behind his desk to face us. Kara sticks her tongue out suggestively as she leans on her own desk. Derek screams as he continues to punch, and he sees Ewan smiling at him in that horrible blue basement with blood pouring from his mouth. Derek screams as this all plays out, and he unleashes his rage. In his office, Towers screams too as he attacks the phone on his desk with his club, smashing it to bits. He then yells at Brenda that the fucking phone doesn't work.
Well,
yeah,
you just broke it.
Yeah.
She's like, I can make a frankenphone.
Derek taught me. In the basement, Derek catches his breath as he looks down at the security guard's battered and bleeding face. The guard is lifeless, but Derek finishes with one more swift punch to his face. Melanie is taken aback by the aggression and asks if the guard fucked Derek's girl too. And as Derek rifles through the guard's jacket, she muses that the damn suits don't even respect each other. Derek takes keys from the jacket, and as he wipes his bloody hand off on the guard's once white button down, he tells her that she's right. They don't. He strides away, and Melanie is ready to move on. She asks what's next as Derek approaches a grated storage area locked with a chain. He quickly attacks the chain with a crowbar, causing the door to swing open. He tosses the tool to the side, and as it clatters on the floor, he unbuttons his cuffs, answering Melanie's question. It's time to go to work. They step inside and get ready. Derek takes off his tie, and Melanie removes her suit jacket and ties her hair into a ponytail. In quick cuts, they arm their bodies and bags with all kinds of tools, but it slows down when Melanie finds a bright yellow nail gun.
So this felt both Edgar Wright
Yes.
and Sam Raimi to me.
Okay, yeah.
It was very action movie cutscene.
Yes.
I was like, all right, I don't know why this is here, but,
But
sure.
okay.
Yeah.
She aims and shoots at a board across the room, and when the nail strikes home, she looks down at the gun in wonder, celebrating with a fuck yeah as her bright red eye scans over it. Derek comes over and presents a phone where through the inner office app, they've posted the quarantine countdown. It pops up again in the bottom left corner of the screen, counting down from 6 hours and 14 minutes.
Isn't that really short?
What's left?
The quarantine.
8 hours?
Yeah.
They're like, it'll be fine. Melanie isn't bothered. She thinks they still have more than enough time to get the job done, but Derek isn't so sure. He says that the boss is a raging cokehead, so he's going to have a lot of guards. I don't know what that correlation is. but he's right. There are a lot of guards.
I didn't even think of it. I'm trying to connect it.
With a grin, Melanie says that she'll bring more nails. Derek says that the only way to the top floor is with a key card or a one-time password, as we've seen. Ready for the challenge, Melanie asks who they have to fuck up to get a card. Derek is on board. He says there's an asshat on the 6th floor who has a level 2 key card. As he speaks, we see the asshat he's referring to, reclined in his chair and talking on his phone until he turns and looks directly at us. It's Lester, the Reaper. If they get that, it'll give them access to the 7th floor, where a bitch has a level 3 key card. Kara spins around, and we see her in all her glory, smiling as she takes a sip from Derek's treasured bright yellow coffee mug. They stand, armed and ready as they approach the door. Derek raises a hammer, and Melanie raises a saw. When Derek's eyes widen slightly at this, she smiles and says, "Hey, extreme measures, right?" They tap their weapons together. So outlining kind of the task at hand, I'm like, okay, we got mini boss fights.
Yeah.
Like, right?
Yeah.
It does really take on like that video game kind of feel. And some aspects of the score even sound.
True.
It does.
In Lester's office, although infected, he calmly snips at his bonsai plant. But interspliced with this are shots of him cutting the plant aggressively and shoving it in his mouth as metal blares.
Which one's real?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I'm like, is he? But again, the way that it's presented, it's almost like this is what he is suppressing.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you shouldn't be able to suppress it, right?
Because that's the whole thing. It's gone.
It releases your inhibition so you can feel the rain on your skin.
No one else can feel it for you.
Only you can let it in. That's the whole point of the virus.
Today is.
When he hears yelling outside, he stabs the scissors into the soil and heads out onto the floor. His cane tapping on the ground as he goes, Lester moves past a screaming man bleeding from his leg without breaking stride. He mutters, "Wednesdays," as he goes. But across the way with Melanie at his side, Derek yells to get his attention. He looks over at them, and when Melanie confirms that this is the guy Derek was talking about, she raises the nail gun and fires. Just in time, Lester raises his cane, causing the nail to succeed in nothing more than attaching a floating piece of paper from upstairs to the cane.
I like the timing of that.
Yeah. Breathing heavily, Lester hurries back to his office. Derek and Melanie are in hot pursuit, but Lester manages to slam the door in time. As Derek and Lester scream insults at each other, Derek bashes at the door with the mail cart, and when he's unable to open it, Melanie yells that he opens doors the way her grandmother fucks. And on commentary, Joe Lynch said that that's his favorite line in the whole film.
Like what, slowly? Or?
Badly? How much of business of your grandmother's are you airing out? But this is when security makes their way through the chaos and approaches Derek and Melanie. Without warning, they tase her and Melanie goes down. Derek pushes the mail cart at the guard and manages to scurry away, hiding on the side of the wall with the man with the injured leg. Melanie continues to spasm on the floor, and when the injured man starts screaming, Derek hurries away in a crouch. He scurries in and out of cubicles, gaining cover as a woman in the background throws trash from a can on another woman who is repeatedly and angrily slamming her phone. So in the commentary I watched, that's what he said got the biggest laugh of the film, was the woman taking papers out of the trash can and just throwing it at the other woman.
What?
Well, it is. I mean, that's what you got inside.
Yeah.
Just very petty.
Yeah.
Lester comes out of his office and finds Melanie still on her back on the ground with her hand splayed open next to her. Lester muses that he's always been bothered by the fact that women don't get the same treatment as men in the workplace. He brings his cane down hard on her hand, causing her to let loose a blood-curdling scream. He continues that he's all about gender equality here before kicking her in the ribs. Meanwhile, the guards still pursue Derek with their tasers at the ready. He's able to get the better of one of them, stabbing the man in the leg and causing him to drop the taser as he goes down. When the other guard fires the taser, Derek raises a clipboard for the darts to get stuck in. He clutches a pin from the pocket of the first guard and uses it to stab the second in the chest, making him collapse into a chair. Lester is still kicking Melanie, but her nail gun is almost in reach. She reaches out and kicks it, making it slide across the floor and stop right at Derek's feet. Derek snatches it up, and Lester turns to rush back into his office. That did make me laugh because he's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
He slams the door just as Derek fires, causing the nails to poke through right next to his head. Derek goes to Melanie and offers to help her up. Calling him Suit, she snidely tells him that she doesn't need his help, but he counters that he needs hers. She chuckles and tells him, fuck you, and he smiles as he calmly fires back with the fuck you too, and she finally grabs his hand and allows him to lift her. We got off the elevator as friends.
Yeah.
I was like, really?
Yeah.
I was just really surprised. Don't need your help, Suit. I'm like, after all that?
I thought we were cool.
Yeah. He was killing you.
Yeah.
And you tossed me the like, what?
We're a team.
I was
We
really
were standing all badass at the end of the hall.
we were.
could have been the poster, and now it means nothing.
Now look at us. Derek kicks the door open and they stroll into Lester's office where he stands behind his desk with his small cup of espresso. Fixing his hair, Derek asks if they can come in. Lester asks, what if I say no? Again, a great mirror of earlier. But indicating Melanie, Derek tells him that he'd have to confer with his associate. And indicating the nail gun, Melanie tells him that she'd have to confer with hers. She fires at the desk as he sets his cup down and the nail embeds itself in the wood, narrowly missing Lester's fingers. Picking his cup back up and carefully keeping his voice composed, Lester asks what they want, and Derek tells him, the key card. Lester reasons that he's not the only one with a level 2 key card, but Derek yells, reminding him that he is the one that fired him. Lester tells him that he's wrong, though. The firm fired Derek. He looks over at Melanie, smiling brightly with her weapon aimed and ready, and tells them not to nail gun the messenger.
And that's what he said to Melanie in the thing when he said, I'm not declining.
Yeah.
That's
the
true.
firm.
Yeah. As Lester sips his espresso, Derek feigns the realization that Lester's right. They're totally good. He says that he'll definitely take it up with the firm, but he'd love to know where to find the firm because he'd love to like kick the firm's ass. Still speaking softly and measured, Lester says that you can't kick a firm's ass. That's the point. Derek regretfully informs him that that just brings them back to him. Lester says that he was just doing his job, but Derek imparts some wisdom onto him while Melanie watches with quiet shock. No one raindrop thinks it caused the flood. He tells Melanie that he understands what that means now. Lester asks if Derek knows what will happen to him if he gives up a key card, but Derek says that he's just going to have to file that under N for not my fucking problem. Lester takes the card out and quietly slides it across the desk to Derek, but as Derek reaches down to take it, Lester presents the scissors he was using to prune his bonsai. He drives it down into Derek's hand, pinning him down to the desk.
When he slid the key card, I was like, oh, that's a lot easier than, oh,
No.
Yeah.
no, we're not doing that.
But I'm like, if you're, again, and I know I'm probably getting annoying at this point, but if your id is running unbridled and you have every impulse, are you, like, there is no room to be calculated and be like, yeah, I'll give you this key card. Ha! Like, there is, like, you would not be capable of it.
Right.
So are we to take it that this trimming of the bonsai is his meditation like Ewan?
Sure, dude, sure.
I guess, yeah.
And so he's like, no, I'm still here.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of Lester left. So
Plus, I kind of think that it is, I don't want to say wasted opportunity, but I do think that it would have been cool to see how carefully composed Lester is at the beginning to see him lose his shit.
yeah, honestly.
Okay.
And again, I feel like that's what I was mentioning earlier, where you present these things and then you're just like, eh.
And I mean, I guess he kind of does, but I mean, I don't know.
Not so much.
Yeah. It would have been such a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
But Derek screams, and in this moment of opportunity, Lester tackles Melanie. He stays on top of her, and while she is able to reach up and wrap her hands around his throat, he quickly gains control of the dropped nail gun. Employees gather in the doorway, laughing, watching, and taking bets. Derek, at this point, is still pinned to the desk, and he throws something at Lester, a tool from his tool belt.
Yeah.
And they said on commentary that the tool that he throws, and it happens so fast because this scene, like, it's very hectic, but what he throws bounces off of Lester because it was made of foam. And it should have been harder than that.
Yeah.
And Joe Lynch was even like, I don't know why that's the take that I used. But he said that Derek is wearing a tool belt with a whole bunch of shit in it that they got from downstairs. And Steven Yeun said that he would be offered foam tools so that the belt wasn't so heavy, but he would say, no, I want the real tools to like feel the weight while I'm walking around. And he said it would last like 1 or 2 takes, and then he'd be like, can I have the foam tool?
That's enough realism.
Yeah.
I bet it was heavy.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
But Lester shoots the nail gun, and Melanie is able to maneuver away, the nails hitting home in the carpet instead of her face. Still trying to pull out the scissors, Derek screams at her to use the saw. He reminds her, extreme measures. She reaches for her bag and pulls out the small saw. She turns it on and it whirs to life, biting eagerly into Lester's gut as Melanie drives it in. Melanie and Lester both scream as they're sprayed with his blood, and the group in the doorway is delighted. Finally, Lester falls off of Melanie onto his side as the bloody saw quiets back down.
They had mentioned something on commentary about this saw because I guess the people that were in charge of this department initially brought in a real saw.
Oh, no.
And I guess expected the scene to play out like with portions of it using a real saw. And Joe Lynch was like, no.
Good.
Safety concerns,
Good.
of course. And he put it so bluntly that it shocked me. And I was like, did I miss something? He goes, that could have injured or even killed Samara Weaving. And I was like, oh my God. But he's right.
Yeah.
And so they obviously did not use that. But I think that a portion of it was cut so that they could make it work better without or with what they had.
Okay.
And so later they had to do an insert shot of that saw with the blood on it.
All right.
Because what happened on the set was unusable with that real saw.
Yeah.
So it was just I have to be honest, I really enjoyed and appreciated the commentary track, but there were a lot of things that were mentioned and discussed that are kind of unclear.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it, he kind of is, it seems like he's vibing, which is like fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He seems like a very likable person.
Yes.
Listening to him in all these interviews and the commentary, it just seems like he made a film that he's really, really proud of. And so sometimes he's like gushing, and he should be, but I'm like, but how did you do that?
Yeah. Like, but
I want to learn more.
Who brought the saw? John Kramer, you said?
What? But Derek calls out for a little help, and still covered in Lester's blood, Melanie pulls herself to her feet. Derek looks underneath the desk and sees how deeply the scissors are driven in as the blood drips from its point. Wrapping her hand around the scissors, Melanie asks Derek if he's ready, warning that it's going to hurt a lot. Derek looks up at her, asking if she's enjoying this, and when she breaks the news to him that he's still one of them, Derek says that he thought they were a team, but Melanie says, for the time being, which I'm like, but I just said like the raindrop in the flood thing.
Yeah. It makes me, what is it, the Gotham Cafe with Stephen King? And he's like, I saved your goddamn life. It's like, what more does he have to do? Probably the mortgage thing, I'd say.
Probably.
Yeah.
But she says, okay, on the count of, and she promptly yanks the scissors out. Derek screams and whimpers, but Melanie just tells him to calm down. She picks up her nail gun and slings her bag over her shoulders as she saunters out of the office. As they leave the dearly departed Reaper's office, Derek says that he has an idea. With his injured hand wrapped, he takes a piece of paper from a printer. As he and Melanie both smoke cigarettes, she sits in a cubicle, placing a pair of red plastic glasses over her eyes. The walls around them are streaked with blood, and a man off screen is going, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, you're cool. Yeah, I was like, what the hell?
They had said on commentary, I guess Joe Lynch had people doing ADR.
Okay.
And one of the people that were doing it, he said, he goes, yeah, he was downstairs in his car and he was smoking. And then he came up, and the way that he was acting, he was like, I want you to do the line from Half Baked. And the guy immediately knew.
Yeah.
But Joe Lynch said, I didn't think anyone would get it.
Really?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty, like, one of the most iconic lines in Half Baked.
Yeah, and the second I heard it, I was like, that's Half Baked.
Yeah.
Just a sidebar, Half Baked is also the greatest Ben & Jerry's flavor. I just have to...
It is so good. I think that's what I have in the freezer right now.
Can I have some on break?
Sure. But Melanie asks if they're done here, and taking a drag from his cigarette, Derek says that they are now. He tosses her his phone, telling her that he needs her to film something. Though Melanie doesn't know what he wants her to film, we see it playing from Smythe's tablet as she and the rest of the 9 watch. He holds up a case file, 32376, The People versus Reed. As Derek looks through the file, he proposes that they discuss Neville Reed, the man. He says that by all accounts, he was an upstanding member of the community. He even earned 2 master degrees by the age of 21, which, how the fuck?
Yeah.
I don't know.
He has twin girls with his high school sweetheart. With a smile, Derek tells them that when Neville Reed contracted the ID7 virus, shit got real. The camera follows him as he walks the floor. There is nothing but chaos around him. People screaming and fighting, running and behaving strangely. Derek quotes the file directly. Overwhelmed by pure id, Neville Reed became prone to involuntary, aberrant, and shocking impulses. He committed a gruesome, unspeakable act in broad daylight in a room full of witnesses. To illustrate his point, Derek gestures to the madness around him. A woman applies clownishly garish makeup to her face. A man takes a bite out of every donut in the box before lining them up on the wall. Another man drags another out of sight behind the cubicles, and a couple engage in sex on a desk in front of everyone. He tells the 9 that they're witnessing a model citizen transformed into a brutal, bloodthirsty killing machine at the blink of an infected eye. He asks them, is it Neville Reed's fault or the virus's fault? He flings his lit cigarette onto a body laying face down on a cart behind him. By the cane sticking out of the cart, it's safe to assume that it's Lester's body.
Oh, shit.
When the cigarette makes contact with him, the body goes up in flames. With a big smile, Derek says, "Let's discuss." Melanie flips the camera on herself, and with a smile and wave, she cheerily tells them, "See you soon, fuckers." The group of employees surround the Reaper's burning body and applaud.
So my question here is, what Derek is saying legitimate? Because then it kind of undermines everything that he had said previously about saying that he thinks that Neville did it just to do it.
Yeah.
Because now he's saying like he's this model citizen. He got 2 master's degrees before he's 21. He has a wife and kids. He's doing this in broad daylight in front of everyone. But then also, no, he did it on purpose. But then no, it was the virus.
I don't know. Maybe now that he has the virus, he's like, look.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I was ill-informed.
Is this what it's like? But yeah, and then I like the line about the blink of an infected eye.
That was really good.
That's very good. But then I think it just adds to like a little bit of confusion. And I feel like this might have been where I said in my notes that I said, because it was after my praise of Ben and Jerry's, where I mentioned that I do feel like the stakes are a little strange now. Like they really aren't any, because your whole point before was almost like you did the wrong thing.
Right.
But if legitimately it was the virus that caused this, the precedent that you're setting maybe isn't bad.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I didn't even think of that like being his character arc at this point. I thought the arc was just like, I was one of them and now I'm like
See,
going against, you know what I mean?
He's got 2 arcs. One of them.
One of them didn't really pan out. On the commentary, I'll get the fun fact out of the way first. He said that Joe Lynch shot this video with an iPhone, for real.
Very cool.
Which I thought was cool.
Okay.
But then he said that he accidentally made a 30-second porn with a action horror movie around it. He said that while they were filming, an AD ran over and was like, I think they're actually having sex back there. That they were a real couple.
Mm-hmm.
And he thinks that maybe it somehow got lost in translation and they just started doing it. So Stephen Yun obviously was there.
Yeah.
And was like, what? And Joe Lynch was like, you don't remember? He goes, and I'm sorry.
Oh, God.
You don't remember the smell?
All right.
Yeah. I'd hear it, so now y'all have to hear it. But I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
Friend of the show, Solomon, shared this factoid with me. And just the description is kind of wild. I will say, them kind of having an excuse for it. It's a likely story. That's kind of wild. It's like, oh, I thought you said that you.
Oh, we weren't.
Oh, our bad. How embarrassing! I swear.
You're putting it in the film, though, right?
Yeah. Because otherwise we can't. Yeah, no. That's wild. I'm sorry, everyone.
But as they finish the video, Smythe drops her tablet in disgust, muttering, shit. In Towers' office, he stands behind his desk, talking to Kara on speakerphone. We see Derek's bloody hand swiping the key card on the elevator as Towers warns Kara that he's on his way up with Lester's card. Kara replies flatly that that's a shame, but she begins to yell, asking if they got the key card before or after they butchered Lester with an electric saw. As Derek presses his bloody finger on the floor 8 button, Towers pleads with Kara to calm down and just come up to the penthouse. Kara says that they're guarding the elevator. She can't leave her office. And when Towers proposes that she destroy her key card, Kara counters that that's her only leverage. Towers sits in his chair and picks up the receiver. Keeping his voice level, he promises Kara that he'll do everything in his power to ensure Derek doesn't get to her. But if he does, then she has to protect the ones above her. Kara yells, "Fuck the ones above me." Towers offers her a raise and she declares, "Fuck your raise." Towers offers to make her a partner, and though she tries to tell him to fuck that too, she quickly reconsiders and tells him that it's a deal. She takes off her headset, promising to throw the card out the window, and Towers breathes a sigh of relief, thanking her as he hangs up the phone. As promised, Kara gets up and goes to her window, but when she looks down at the collection of SWAT vans below, she pauses. She screams out for Meg, and the door promptly swings open. When Meg appears in the doorway, Kara tosses the key card in her direction, and it falls out into the hallway. She tells Meg to hide the card and not tell her where it is. And as Meg leaves to follow her order, she screams at her again to make more fucking coffee. When Meg closes the door behind her, Kara mutters that Meg is a stupid bitch.
She was never going to get rid of that key card.
No.
That, as soon as she was like, but that's my only leverage. You're not going to get rid of it.
But like, it's crazy for Towers to be like, look, I'm not going to let him get to you. But if he does get to you, I can't let him get to me.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot. He just murdered fucking Lester.
And what good is a raise going to do for that?
Yeah, nothing.
But a partnership.
Mm-hmm. A dead partner.
Yeah. In surveillance footage of fighting, a group storming up the stairway, and a woman flipping the camera the double bird as she photocopies her ass, we land on footage of the 8th floor elevator. Melanie and Derek stand in doorways of adjacent bathrooms flanking the elevator. Derek informs Melanie, who has her nail gun ready, that the elevator is the only way upstairs, so they'll be able to ambush her here. Melanie reasons that it's going to be a while, and to pass the time, Derek asks her 3 favorite bands. Melanie asks, only 3? But Derek doubles down. That's the rules. After a moment of contemplation, Melanie has them: Motorhead, DRI, and early Anthrax. As people race the hall in front of them, Melanie proclaims, metal till I fucking puke.
I will say 3 is actually pretty good. The Ain't Right's only got 1 Desert
That's
Island.
true. That's true. Derek chuckles that wasn't what he expected, but he commends her choices. Melanie asks what he was expecting. Dave Matthews Band? Derek argues that Dave Matthews Band is actually good. When someone comes racing toward them, Melanie calmly points her nail gun at them and tells them to go the other way. They oblige. Derek says again that Dave Matthews Band is a good band, and when she scoffs at this, he asks if she's ever seen them live, and she vows that she would rather chew glass. Derek rationalizes that just because they're popular doesn't mean they're bad at music. In fact, he would reason that it's more popular to dislike them, so people are just trying to be cool. It's bullshit. Melanie says that she'll go see them at Burning Man then, but Derek tells her to laugh all she wants. But if they make it out of this, he's getting them both tickets to the Coliseum show in July. A smile spreads across her face as he continues that he's going to take her there and turn her on to some great musicianship. She jokes, "You're going to turn me on?" And she asks if this is going to go down before or after they buy Birkenstocks, and she presumes that he wears his with socks.
I will say a couple things. Firstly, the idea of getting us
Yes.
concert tickets. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Secondly, I like the Dave Matthews Band.
I like the Dave Matthews Band as well. And it just made me laugh because he was like, to the Coliseum show in July. It's like, you already went.
I guess I'll buy a second ticket.
Let's be very clear. I think you already bought your ticket. But Joe Lynch had said that in the script, all that was there was they wait. That's all that was here. And he said that they were there late one night setting up the lighting for this scene, but Stephen Yeun and Samara Weaving were still around. And so they were like, oh, we'll stand in instead of getting people to just stand there. They'll stand there so that they can get the lighting right. So as they're working and trying to get the lighting, Joe Lynch says, top 3 bands, go. And so they start talking. Stephen Yeun did say that he likes Dave Matthews Band. And so when they went home that night, he wrote this all out. And the next day he was like, here's what we're doing.
Oh, that's
so
good.
This was all based on a real conversation that they had. And he said that it's one of the scenes that he is proudest of that he's ever done. Joe Lynch said that he's ever filmed, because it gives so much to their character. And it does. And I saw in an interview with Stephen Yeun, he was like, well, it is popular not to like that.
It's not wrong. I will say with that, it does, and they mentioned on commentary, set up another moment, just having this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does.
Which is very cool. Another thing that was very interesting to me, and something that you really don't notice, but all the people running by as this scene goes on, they had said on commentary were green screened in.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I couldn't tell.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
But in the boardroom, the 9 is looking worse for wear. They look tired, worried, and disheveled, and one woman is drinking openly from a flask. But again, no dicks are out.
Yeah.
Is that the barometer? They can't just be fighting each other or something?
Well, you know, one of those guys is a pervert. At least one.
Statistics.
Statistically. But the CDC official is back on the screen, and Towers asks why they can't just send in a unit to take care of Derek. She tells him that a heavily armed SWAT team in a building filled with civilians infected with the virus could be catastrophic. Towers interrupts her by leaning onto the desk and doing a line of coke. She asks what he's doing, and he makes a weak excuse that it's allergies before being like, "Who are you, my fucking therapist?"
It's like, what are you doing? Fucking coke while I'm talking to you?
That's all he's doing, though.
Well, it keeps him calm, I guess.
Apparently, it's the antidote.
Yeah.
It's that or the bonsai tree? Or?
Yes.
Yeah, well.
The CDC official sighs but continues forward. She says that all they can do is talk to Derek to see if they can de-escalate the situation. She says that they have a psychologist on site, but before she can finish, Towers swings his club and ruins the screen. As we hear Towers tell the 9 to alert accounting, we see the door to that office. Someone inside the office lifts their phone to see a smiling photo of Derek Cho, as Towers offers anyone and everyone $150,000 for his head. Smythe looks up at him with knitted brows. She reminds him that he's talking about murder here, before adding that he should be offering at least $450,000. And with a smile, Towers agrees. Another moment of like, oh, humanity. Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Back on the 8th floor, as Derek washes his face in the bathroom sink, Melanie mutters a metal song, giving the hard bass line and lyrics of entrails and annihilation. I Googled this to see what she could be singing, and I got a Reddit post saying, "What is Melanie singing in Mayhem?" And that made me laugh out loud. But she still stands waiting on the elevator to open as the countdown briefly appears in the corner. 4 hours and 4 minutes left. Derek tells her that they only have 4 hours left, and Melanie quotes Risky Business. "Well, sometimes you gotta say, what the fuck? Make your move." Derek gets the reference and also what she means by it. They move away from the elevator and into the main area with the cubicles. As they stare forward, something moves behind the slatted wall next to them. Derek and Melanie turn to lock eyes with Kara and Meg. Divided by the floor hole, they all walk in slow motion back toward the offices, but Kara and Meg are joined by followers as they go. When they finally meet face to face, Derek and Melanie are alone, but Kara is flanked by Meg and 5 other employees who have fashioned themselves as warriors. Pulsing music mounts until it finally cuts off, and the silence is interrupted by a ringing phone that Meg scuttles to and puts on speaker. The voice on the other end addresses Derek by name and identifies himself as Mark, a psychologist working with the CDC. When he asks if Derek can hear him, Kara calls out that he can.
I just want to say I thought the shot through the slats was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This like pre-battle situation.
Yeah.
I will say I don't know how I feel about this psychologist bit because it's like it's a virus.
Right.
Yeah. But again, if a psychologist could potentially talk someone down, then it doesn't completely erase. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you can be like talked to and calmed down. I mean, I don't know. We're beating a dead horse.
I thought it was, I don't want to say interesting, but this posse that they have, did you get tired of fighting and fucking and whatever that y'all took a break? Or why were y'all just sitting there?
They were waiting for this moment.
Everybody was like, oh, you tired too? Okay, we'll wait. Then we'll fight later.
That's true.
But they were all like, there's a group of them and they're not doing anything.
Like we can switch it off too.
Yeah. But we do got to remember at this point, it's been some hours that they've been pumping that chemical.
That's
in
true.
there at them.
4.
Yeah.
4 hours.
Okay.
So maybe it is starting to dissipate a little bit. Mark continues that he heard Derek is under a lot of stress right now and he wants to try to help. He asks Derek how he feels, and Derek chuckles and repeats the question dramatically. Melanie eyes him with a grin as we see Derek from several angles and views describe how he feels. He feels like taking his clothes off, like causing extraordinary amounts of property damage. He wants to scream, fuck, twist limbs, and break bones. With a smile, he says, "I feel great, Mark." Mark assures him that that's just the virus talking, and Kara agrees. Derek is just so consumed by his id that he doesn't realize that they're just there to help him. Mark advises Derek to listen to Kara. He just needs to sit down, take a breath, and they can talk it out. Derek pretends to mull this over, then looks over at Melanie. His eyes catch a speaker on one of the desks behind him, and Derek tells Mark that he'll talk it out. He then hands his phone over to Melanie and tells her, track 3. She walks away to hook it up to the speaker, muttering that it better not be Dave Matthews Band. Mark commends Derek on his decision to talk it out, so Derek does. As Motherfucker by Faith No More begins to play, he addresses the group across from him. Anyone who doesn't want to be a part of this can leave now. Melanie joins him, kicking off her heels, and Mark tries to stop Derek, but he ignores him. He warns that if they choose to stay, and that's what it looks like, they're agreeing to following terms and conditions. 1, they're waiving their right to personal bodily integrity. Mark is still protesting, declaring himself to be a psychologist and pleading with Derek to listen to him, but Derek pushes on. 2, per State versus Neville Reed, he and his colleague will not be held liable for any felony or misdemeanor they are a victim of. We see Derek painting the people in front of him as he outlines what they may become a victim of: aggravated assault, aggravated battery, disorderly conduct, destruction of property, mayhem, or first-degree murder. Roll credits. Kara has stepped away from their group as they crack their knuckles and ready their blades and a fire extinguisher. Melanie slides the red glasses down over her eyes as Derek moves to the third and final agreement. Terms and conditions may change or be updated whenever the fuck he wants. Melanie raises the nail gun, and with a grin, Derek tells them to consider themselves notified.
So I just want to talk about the music in the scene, the use of Faith No More.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of starts with the composer that they almost had for the film.
Mm-hmm.
The composer that they do have is a guy called Steve Moore. I guess he's in a band called Zombie.
Mm-hmm.
But the work that he does in this film is fantastic.
Yeah.
But who was originally going to score the film was Bear McCreary, who also scored The Walking Dead and just a ton of other projects.
Yeah.
But I think he worked with Lynch on previous projects as well. But there was just a difficulty with scheduling, and so he couldn't do it. But the thing is that Bear McCreary is friends with former members of Oingo Boingo.
Okay.
And so in the script, it was originally going to be Dead Man's Party by Oingo Boingo playing here. But when Bear isn't there, no Bear, no Boingo. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, that was
good.
But this is when Lynch calls upon his history.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since the 90s, Faith No More has been his favorite band. And he had a dream project of always wanting to direct a music video for them.
Yeah.
And eventually, throughout his filmmaking career, Faith No More gives him a call and he gets the opportunity to do it. And as soon as Bear McCreary's out and they want to try to find the proper music for this scene, he decides to call Faith No More because using Oingo Boingo's song is going to be too expensive.
Yeah.
And so he just calls them, asks them, and they let him use it.
Oh, very nice.
Just that simple.
He said that they were so happy with the way the music video turned out, they didn't even charge him.
It's amazing.
Oh,
Yeah, I was
wow.
like, that's so cool. But he said that they knew that was the song that was going to play here. So when they choreographed the fight, they choreographed it with the song in mind.
It's brilliant.
So that it would kind of
not
perfectly sync up, but it works. It's really good.
Yeah.
And I just want to say Mike Patton is one of the greatest vocalists of all time. Mr. Bungle is a fantastic band, and that's really all I've got to say.
Chaos ensues as the two groups collide. The film lives up to its name as it is pure mayhem. Melanie and Derek both hold their own against the onslaught, but take their share of L's, being beaten, bludgeoned, and injured. But they gain the upper hand. Melanie beats a woman to death with her hammer, and when Derek subdues the last men that had him restrained, he sprays their bodies with the fire extinguisher they brought to the fight. Silhouetted in the fog from the extinguisher, Derek and Melanie beat the bodies on the ground, and we see them walk away from them in slow motion, bloody but victorious. As Melanie spits a mouthful of blood onto the ground, Mark continues to call out from the speakerphone, asking if anyone is there.
The shot of them traveling through the smoke, fantastic.
No, yeah, it's great.
This whole little fight scene looked like, or to me, I bet this was a lot of fun to do.
Mm-hmm.
Them do it, like filming it, because everything is very, I'll be honest, I wasn't really paying attention to the music. I was paying attention to what they were doing. But it's very... I know it's choreographed and all that, but I mean, it looks like a lot of fun. Like they're kicking each other's ass. They're getting their ass kicked. Then they come back and all that, standing up like Undertaker and everything. and I was like, man, I bet they had a lot of fun doing that whole little choreographed scene there.
Stephen Yun on commentary said that he loved doing these scenes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I bet it was. Sitting behind her desk, Kara takes a deep, shaky breath. Derek and Melanie enter the room, and as Melanie lounges on the couch behind them, he takes the seat he just sat in earlier today when Kara was the one with all the power. He asks politely for the key card, and when Kara tells him he's going to have to negotiate for it, he places a pair of bloody scissors on the desk and informs her the negotiations have ended. She counters that the quarantine will end too, and she doesn't know where the key card is. Derek asks what she wants, and when she simply asks for a truce, Derek tells her, "Fuck your truce," and Melanie looks at him proudly. Kara tells him no truce, no key card, and smiles smugly. Derek implores her to just tell him where it is, and he'll be on his way and leave her alone. Kara muses that he's a man of his word, and that's why she believes him. The smile drops from his face when she picks up his yellow mug and circles her finger around the rim. The reason she believes him is because he's honest, but that's also the reason he never made partner. She throws the mug across the room, and when it shatters against the wall, Derek jumps to his feet and aims his screwdriver at her.
I feel like this is minor, the heavy-handed thing that I said, where it's like, you're a good man. That's why you can't.
That's why you're down there. Joe Lynch had said that if you look at the wall, you see all the times they threw the mug and it didn't break because it left dents in the wall.
That's funny.
And he said that they didn't have time to fix it, so it's still visible. But he said in Pulp Fiction, when Alexis Arquette shoots at Vincent and Jules and they're not hit and it's just bullets on the wall behind them, he said this is his homage to that. Or he's calling it his homage to that because he just didn't have time to fix the dents in the wall.
It's incidental.
Yeah. But again, if they were watching a lot of Tarantino, that's what Samara Weaving said, that they would watch Tarantino and eat pasta.
All right.
Hey.
Which sounds like a great time.
Yeah.
But Kara gently reminds him about the key card, advising him not to be stupid, and he lowers back into the chair. She screams for Meg, and Melanie laughs as she yells for Meg too. It was funny. Meg struts in and drops the key card on the desk, or the remainder of it. It's blackened and twisted. Kara tells him to take the key card and go, but Derek doesn't see a key card. He sees a useless piece of scorched plastic. Kara looks down at it with worry and says that it's strange because that's what she sees too. She asks if that's what Meg sees, and Meg smiles when she agrees. Speaking to her nicer than she ever has and calling her sweetie, Kara asks Meg why she brought her this useless piece of plastic instead of her key card. Meg tells her snidely that that is the key card. Or it used to be before she put it in the microwave. Kara asks why she would do that. She tells Meg that she's exactly like every other assistant, a vapid, bottom-feeding, parasitic shithead. Raising her voice as she rises to her feet, she calls Meg a pair of tits with zero talent and an incompetent cunt. As Derek and Melanie exchange gleeful looks, Kara demands to know what could possibly possess Meg to destroy the key card. And with a smile, Meg explains, everyone upstairs knew that Kara would betray them, so they offered her a promotion to destroy the key card. Melanie eyes Kara's running shoes as Meg giggles, realizing that she no longer works for Kara. She calls her a fucking bitch and snatches up the scissors on the desk before Kara can grab them first. Opening and closing the scissors, Meg announces that she doesn't have to listen to Kara's hideous, shrill voice ever again. They swap fuck yous before Meg stabs Kara in the chest. We watch Derek and Melanie's reaction rather than the carnage as Meg murders the siren and we hear her gurgling on her own blood. Derek's face is shadowed with disappointment, but Melanie laughs maniacally and cheers from the couch.
I just want to say the shots of Samara Weaving on the couch are also clearly Tarantino inspired.
Yeah, yeah.
For a reason. But the thing with Meg and the siren, I don't know why it just doesn't work for me.
It's a little underwhelming. I feel like Kara's such a bitch that I feel like we needed to see her death or something. And I feel like us Yeah, she got done in. She was an asshole to Meg. But I don't know. It did feel a little underwhelming not seeing it.
I just feel like we don't see any of Meg seething, any of anything. We kind of just have her yelling for Meg, not yelling at Meg. And so this betrayal doesn't feel earned, maybe?
I think that I just piggybacking on what you said, John Paul, my big issue that I have with this is that we don't really see anything.
Yeah.
It feels very that one death of Game of Thrones that we were all waiting for, and then it happens, you know, and then you're just like, that was fucking it.
Yeah.
Everything that she did, and that's what she gets.
Yeah.
Because arguably to me, Kara is more of a villain than any of the anyone upstairs. I think, and I know that if this happened, we would be like, that's so heavy-handed. But even if like Meg wasn't a fucking asshole like Kara, because she was like, I got it from a kid, like she was still being fucking rude to Derek.
Yeah.
This moment would be like, well, hell yeah, like we're rising up. You know what I mean? Because I feel like that's what a lot of this movie is. But yeah, she was an asshole. Kara was an asshole. Kara yelled at Meg. Meg did what Kara said. And then all of a sudden it's like, now I'm the boss, bitch.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
I will say that unveiling I didn't really like either because it's like, and you would think that, but I've made a deal behind your back.
It made me laugh too, because Kara's like, why'd you bring me this instead of the key card? You know that's the fucking key card. You know it is. But in his office, Towers watches a video from Derek on his phone. Derek tells him in a friendly voice that he just wanted to say, no more lies and no more power games. He spins, revealing Kara behind him, face down on her treadmill as it races. No more bullshit. He turns further and Melanie smiles as she wags a disembodied tongue in front of the phone. Derek finishes the sentiment. No more siren song. He tells Towers that Meg is a little crazy, so she's a perfect fit here. Towers seethes. It did make me laugh because he's like, Siren, is that what they call her down there?
Yeah.
God damn.
Hey, who's that?
Wait, you mean Kara?
Yeah.
I also thought it was funny that Derek is like, no, well, Meg did this.
Yeah.
Well,
Like, don't you want to appear like you are capable of anything? But you're like, this wasn't us.
I just think it, well, yeah. That's really funny to think about. Meg's crazy.
We couldn't believe it.
well, they turned on each other. Damn.
In Kara's office, Derek sits sadly on the floor, holding the handle of his mug, the only intact piece from its collision with the wall. Melanie comes in wearing Kara's running shoes, happily proclaiming that Kara had great taste in shoes because they're comfy as fuck. Derek admits that he loved this mug, but Melanie just grunts non-committally and takes off her blouse, revealing a tank top underneath. It is funny to me. I know that Ready or Not hadn't happened yet, but like this progression of her costume is reminded me a lot of the wedding dress. But Derek continues that he got the mug on his first day here because his sister gave it to him. A little above a whisper, he says, fuck this place. He asks if she still has the foreclosure paperwork on her, and digging into her bag, Melanie pulls it out. She sits next to Derek as he looks it over. When he pauses, she asks him, what? He tells her that she's in luck because this mortgage is part of a bad batch. It's been filed so many times that the original would be tough to find. It might even be lost. Melanie gets his drift. She says that if she were to just ask the bank for the original paperwork and Derek finishes, she would put them in a tough spot. Melanie sighs contentedly, but Derek isn't finished. He tells her that a signature from upstairs would void it completely. He hands the paper back to her and sincerely apologizes for not helping her earlier. Melanie nods before breaking eye contact and looking down, but Derek tells her that he should have helped her and he didn't. She tells him quietly that it's okay, just don't do it again, I guess. His phone rings, and when Derek checks it, Towers has responded with a video message of his own. He tells the person holding the phone to step back to get a view of someone in a tarp at Towers' feet. When he pulls the tarp away, it's Ewan's body. Derek gives a pained no, and Towers says, fuck you, Derek, which did make me think of Step Brothers. But he pees on Ewan's body, spraying him back and forth as he laughs darkly. Melanie asks if that was Derek's friend, but Derek dissolves into sobs. She tries to take the phone and comfort him, but Derek continues to cry, saying that Ewan has kids. He apologizes, explaining that the virus takes everything up to 11.
Dude.
That was your only friend here.
Yeah.
And he does have a family, and he was a good person, even after the virus. You just saw his dead body, which is enough. But then you watch like your new mortal enemy pissing on him, and you're just like, I'm sorry for crying, man. It's just the virus.
Yeah.
Like, no.
It's not just the
Cry.
virus.
Cry.
Yes.
That's a lot.
And I did think it was funny, too, that that took you 2 seconds to tell her that. You couldn't have told her that earlier?
Oh, about the paperwork? Yeah.
Yeah, honestly.
He's like, well, now we're friends.
Yeah.
No, you proved yourself. You were holding that tongue, dude. You're like cool now.
Which Meg took from
Yeah.
her body.
Not that we had anything
they
to do with
didn't
that.
do that.
Yeah, we're scared down here with Meg. The pissing to me just didn't work. It just seemed like, I don't know, it seemed very juvenile for the moment, because it's like, we're building towards the big boss fight seemingly.
I think they're just trying to illustrate what a piece of shit Towers is.
He's
but
like,
yeah.
It's like, come on, dude.
But to get this like emotional response from Derek, like the P kind of like
Yeah, that's what
undercuts
I'm
that a
saying.
little
Like,
bit.
it could have been worse because the P, and then he's like, it's like, I don't know if these work
I'd be
together.
crying.
Yeah, no, he should have been angry.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's demoralizing. It's
Yeah.
disrespectful.
Yeah, it's extremely disrespectful.
So let's fucking get up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But dude, it's been a really long day. Melanie agrees, and the comforting hand that she's placed on his shoulder suddenly takes a new meaning. He turns toward her, and a kiss quickly turns to a montage of them showing the flesh on Kara's office floor. There was what I already see you protesting. I know there wasn't a lot of flesh.
There was
really
no
any flesh.
Yeah.
Showing the clothed. Like, even on commentary, they said the producers were like, what the fuck was what was that? And it's the shot that they said pissed off the producers the most is the shot of Steven Yeun's belted pants. They're like, what is happening?
That's the shot that pissed me off.
Because I thought it was like carnal,
Well, yeah.
They're like, well, let's just leave our clothes on. That's when it's the most sexy, I think. It was like, okay, it's a choice in this R-rated film where we've seen apparently unsimulated.
Real coitus. But meanwhile, while they're banging, the infected bang on the doors of the lobby, but they're screaming like zombies while the police and CDC wait outside with helicopters flying above them. This shot was very zombie to me.
Yeah.
But upstairs, as Ants Marching by Dave Matthews Band plays, Derek and Melanie lie next to each other breathlessly as she decides that she likes this virus. She's like, I've never had sex fully clothed before.
Expanding my horizons.
She asks, what now? And Derek presumes that they definitely exchange numbers, maybe get an apartment and a dog. But Melanie laughs, clarifying that she meant, what do they do next? The music fades out as Derek's phone starts to buzz. He checks it and tells Melanie that Ray the IT guy sent a message out on the app. We see the message on his phone. Elevator access is restricted. Joe Lynch did enthusiastically point out that those are his thumbs, his hands holding the phone. But Melanie is sure that there's another way they can get up there. But Derek tells her that they can't, not without the key card, unless... He jumps up, leaving Melanie on the ground, confused. We cut to them running down the stairwell, passing people fighting on the steps. Derek says that Ray can't fix the elevators, but he's got another idea. They go to the IT office where we finally meet Ray the IT guy, played by director Joe Lynch. He had said on commentary that he did not want to be in this film. He wasn't going to be in it at all, but they had run out of Serbian actors that could speak English.
Okay.
And so it kind of prompted him to entertain it. And then he talked about having really fallen in love with Steven Yeun and Samara Weaving and wanting to do a scene with them and thinking that it would be fun and that it was fun.
Yeah.
And he fits into the vibe. He plays his part well.
Yeah,
he does.
I thought his mustache was fake, but it is
No.
not.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
If you see clips of him when they were filming this, he had a big beard.
Okay.
And then I guess he just shaved it and left the mustache to play the IT guy. They also said that they set this up the IT office up last minute. It's just in the basement, and they threw like computer stuff down there.
Oh, wow.
It works.
It does. But he is slamming a keyboard down on his desk, breaking it and causing the pieces to fly, screaming at it for not working. When Derek tries to get his attention, he yells that he's busy. When Ray finally turns on them, his left eye an infected red as he raises the keyboard to strike him, he stops when he sees that it's Derek. He calms down and drops the keyboard, causing it to clatter on the ground.
I want to say the thing with the phone earlier. If he and Ray had worked together previously,
Yeah.
it would also explain why he's helping him now.
Yes.
And not just because of the management.
Yeah.
Right.
Derek holds up the video of Lester's burning body and tells Ray that they need his help. Ray is shocked by the footage and the people cheering. He asks how that happened. With a smirk, Melanie tells Ray that what happened was they asked for his help and he told them he was busy. In response to this information, Ray welcomes them to IT. They head over to the computer. As Ray takes a seat in front of it, Derek tells him that they need to hack into someone's computer. Ray replies dryly that he needs Interpol to get off his back. What else is new? When Melanie gently rests her hammer on Ray's shoulder as a silent reminder, his face brightens into a compliant smile and he asks who they're trying to hack. Derek tells him, Irene Smythe. Ray replies, oh, fuck her, and immediately gets to work, quickly clacking on his keyboard and a delightful ding sounding when he finishes and hits the enter key.
His zeal for screwing over Irene Smythe.
Uh-huh.
I will say on commentary, whenever Carrie Fox, the actress who plays Smythe, she appears on screen and I hear Lynch say, what a wonderful time they had working together. And he said, and whatever you're supposed to say on a director's commentary.
Ugh.
And then there was like 20 seconds of silence, it felt like, or whatever. And then he says, we did not get along. So I don't know if he's like, no, let me play Ray.
Yeah.
Damn.
Helped him, huh?
Yeah. Motivation.
Yeah.
But in her dark office, Irene Smythe's computer freezes and frustrated, she picks up the phone. So again, her office was created at the same time last minute as this quote unquote IT department.
Uh-huh.
It is one wall.
Really?
It's one wall. It's not even a room,
Wow.
but it worked.
Yeah.
He talked about David Slade, who did 30 Days of
Oh,
Night,
yeah.
Hard Candy.
He worked on Hannibal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said he did Bandersnatch too. And I think Metalhead, the Black Mirror episode.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
But he talked about a story that David Slade had told because he directed an episode of Breaking Bad. And he said that he was filming a hospital scene and he had 2 walls to work with. And so he was like, okay, so what do I do when we come out of this? And they were like, we're not coming out of this. It's 2 walls, make it work. And so that's how he learned, okay, it really is what you make of it. And Joe Lynch said that that inspired him and they made an office out of 1 wall because it doesn't feel like she is not in her office.
No.
Not at all.
But when Ray's line rings, he encourages Derek and Melanie to be quiet. As soon as he answers, Smythe asks what's wrong with her computer. Putting on a condescending tone and feigning ignorance, Ray tells her that the doctor can't do anything until she tells him where it hurts. Smythe comments that her internet is slower than Ray's brain, and Ray goes off on a tirade. With no budget and 1 man working in a basement, he doesn't understand exactly how they make such demands of him. As he goes off, Smythe literally sets the phone down and casually lights a cigarette. When she picks it back up, she tells Ray that she's shocked and appalled to hear this, and she'll talk to Towers about it. But right now, she needs him to do his fucking job. He presses a button on the keyboard and winks at Melanie and Derek when he tells Smythe that he just sent her a patch. When she questions further, he sarcastically tells her how to install it on her computer, causing her to hang up on him in annoyance. Mission accomplished, Ray comments that Smythe is so rude as he hangs up the phone, adding that he thinks the virus might have made her even nicer.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay.
Laughing, he remarks that he could have named the patch something awful and Smythe still would have installed it on her computer. He types furiously on his keyboard as Melanie and Derek watch before he announces that they're in. Irene Smythe is hacked. As files pop up on Ray's screen, Derek asks if they belong to Smythe. When Ray tells him that they do, even the porn, Derek gives him his next mission. He wants Ray to pretend that those files are a peaceful village, and Melanie adds, and Ray is the Viking King. Ray assures them that they had him at peaceful, and he gets back to work. Back in her office, Irene Smythe watches in horror as her files disappear before her eyes. She snatches up the phone again, yelling at Ray that his patches just erased everything on her hard drive. But the voice that greets her on the other end isn't Ray, it's Derek. He informs her that he's got good news, bad news, and worse news. Good news is that they have a copy of her hard drive on the backup server. Bad news is that he's the one that has it. As Melanie looks at him adoringly, he tells the worst news. If she wants it, she has to come down and get it. The camera presses in on Irene Smythe with the pressure of this decision, and we cut to Towers' office, where she has relayed the information and the deal she was presented with, the backup copy for her key card. Towers just begins to laugh, but this isn't funny to Smythe. As Snyder stands by, she tells him that that backup is worth millions to the firm. She's making the deal. The boss is incensed, but Irene assures him that she's not giving him the key card. Calling Derek an idiot, she tells Towers that he let her decide on the meeting spot. Snyder opens his jacket to reveal the empty holster inside, and upon seeing this, Towers asks where his piece is. And we see where it is, taped underneath a table in the room where Melanie and Derek enter, eager to meet with Smythe. We follow Smythe as she glides down the hall toward them in slow motion, giving no attention to one man thrashing another outside of the glass walls, and yet another man running past her, completely nude. She opens the door to the meeting room, and with the brandish of his weapon, she stops in her tracks. After a quick frisk from Derek, he announces that she's clean, but Melanie looks her up and down in disgust. Smythe asks who Melanie is, and Derek tries to explain that she's one of the mortgage accounts but Melanie interrupts. She tells Smythe that her name is Melanie Cross, and she lives at 22nd and Pacific. Smythe laughs cruelly and quips, "Not for long."
Look.
Yeah.
She's got a lot of nerve. Derek stops Melanie from advancing on her and prompts Smythe to give them the key card. Smythe sits and lights a cigarette, countering that she wants her files. Melanie opens the laptop in front of her, revealing them. Smythe smoothly drops the lighter on the table and lowers her hand underneath, feeling for the gun, but we see the dangling tape instead. With a grin, Derek asks if she's looking for this, and he holds up the gun tauntingly. Taking a seat, he imparts her with some wisdom in the form of this pro tip. Employees' IQs at this firm are inversely proportionate to their salaries, so it's not a good idea to try to outsmart someone with a smaller paycheck. If that ain't the fucking truth.
Yeah.
He turns the barrel of the gun towards her on the table and repeats himself. Key card. Without protest, Irene tosses the card at them and slides it across the table. She tells them to give her the hard drive now as she's performed her part, but Melanie tells her that she hasn't yet. She tosses the mortgage agreement over and tells Smythe that she has to sign this first. Smythe looks it over briefly and assures Melanie that she can sign it, sure. Then she'll just claim temporary insanity and have it dismissed. I was like, oh, fuck, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
If you can get off on murder, surely a signature's not.
I was like, and Melanie's home free. Oh, no.
I literally did not think about it. With a fakely apologetic tone, Smythe says, "Sorry, sweetie." She advises that Melanie take it to the man upstairs with that key card before tossing the agreement flippantly on the table. Melanie takes all this in quietly before she brings the hammer down hard, destroying the hard drive. She asks Derek to give them a minute, and Derek is happy to oblige. Joe Lynch said this scene that they were filming right here with this confrontation, he was so exhausted that he was leaning against the wall and he passed out.
Good Lord.
Damn.
They had to take him to his trailer and give him an IV.
Oh, shit.
But Derek opens the door to give them their privacy, and Snyder is on the other side. And when he pushes the door back at Derek, he knocks him down. Melanie turns to see what happened, and Irene takes her moment to... I don't know, throw pocket sand in her eyes.
That's exactly what I thought. I put it in my notes.
I don't know what this was. But she attacks Melanie, slamming her head against the wall as Snyder whoops Derek's ass with ease, quickly gaining access to the gun. Melanie smashes a glass vase over Irene's head, sending her to the ground as Snyder whoops Derek's ass into a daycare room.
Now, this music feels like a video game.
Yes, it does.
Especially, it feels like the boss fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And again, they like to get their asses kicked before they actually start fighting back for some reason. But
it's more dramatic that way.
It's an underdog. You got to root.
Yeah. Derek falls on playmats as Snyder loads the gun and points it down at Derek. Derek turns his head away, his fate in front of him, dark and certain. But instead of unloading the gun into him, Snyder unloads it across the room, fatally wounding innocent plushies before tossing the gun away into a toy truck. There's a pink bear that gets shot, and Joe Lynch's other film, Everly, apparently it's a reference to that.
Okay.
But I've not seen it.
So this wasn't a Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
No. He takes out his weapon of choice instead, his brass knuckles. He slips them on his fingers slowly, his knuckles cracking as he does, and tells Derek that bullets are for cowards. But Derek looks like he would have preferred the bullets. Back in the meeting room, Smythe has gained the upper hand and is kicking Melanie across the floor. But when Melanie slashes Smythe's calf with a piece of broken glass, she goes down, and Melanie is able to get to her feet and pull a mallet from her bag of tricks. She raises it over her head, but Smythe implores her to wait. She reveals that the key card doesn't work and needs an access code. I thought we needed a key card or an access code.
Yeah.
Now we need a key card and an access code.
Oh, well.
I'm sick of it. In the daycare room, Derek and Snyder continue their brawl against a bright clown painting. Derek reaches back into his tool belt, and when he comes back with a screwdriver, he shrugs, determined to make the most of it. He slashes at Snyder, missing, until Snyder grabs a hold of his arm and twists it until it cracks. I don't think that there's any repercussions.
I think he just adjusted him.
Yeah. He feels great now.
He feels much better.
In the next scene, the cat was breathing comfortably. But this close to him, Derek is able to stab him in the shoulder with the screwdriver, but it doesn't even slow Snyder down. It's still sticking out of him when he hurls Derek onto a beanbag and takes out his mace. So Joe Lynch said that this was the one fight that he and Steven Yeun had because, like I said earlier, the actors were mostly, as often as they could, doing their own stunts. Mm-hmm. So this was choreographed carefully. You know, it has to be meticulous because someone could really get hurt.
Yeah.
So while they're doing this, Steven Yeun is supposed to be slammed down onto a beanbag, and in one of the takes, the beanbag wasn't in the right spot, and he was slammed down onto the floor. And Joe Lynch said that everything went quiet, and Steven Yeun screamed, "What the fuck?" And he said he jumped up and he yelled at Joe Lynch that he needs to make the fucking calls right, and like stormed off. And that Joe Lynch was like, and he's doing this commentary with Steven Yeun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Steven Yeun's like, well, you know, like, but he was like, no, you were absolutely right. Like, somebody could get extremely hurt doing this. Like, he was like, and I learned a lesson from that. And that was the only fight that we ever had. I was like, I probably wouldn't have told this.
No.
He's like, remember when you fucking screamed at me, dude? But Derek tries to fight him off as Snyder promises to burn his eyes out with the pepper spray. In the struggle, the stream of pepper spray goes directly into Derek's mouth, and he spits it back up into Snyder's face. So this is just like The Nun.
Oh, right.
All right.
All right. Oh, wow. Careful now.
It's better. But
It's much better for the record, but
agreed.
When Snyder backs away, Derek pulls the screwdriver out of Snyder's shoulder and plunges it deeply into his skull. Bye-bye, Snyder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Derek runs, coughing and retching down the hall to the water fountain. When the spigot doesn't give him enough relief, he stabs the water drum, sending a steady stream into his mouth and onto his burning face. When he returns to the meeting room, he tells Smythe that he's done fucking around. He demands that she give him the code, although I don't know how he knows that he needs the code.
Yeah.
He wasn't in there.
No, he wasn't.
But whatever. Smythe tells him that he has great hearing. That's something that they don't really touch on. But Derek Cho, great hearing.
And he can like fucking build phones and stuff.
Yes, he's a man of many talents.
That's how he learned how he heard somebody else talking about it in another room.
Smythe tells him that she'll give him the code under one condition. She wants Melanie. Melanie just destroyed years of Smythe's work. If Derek wants his revenge, he's going to have to give Smythe hers too. Emotion catching in her voice, Melanie tells Smythe that she just wants her home back. But in a sing-song voice, Smythe reminds Derek that the quarantine is ending soon, and we see the time once again in the lower left corner, counting down steadily from 25 minutes. I was like, God.
Yeah.
They've been running around this building for
A
6
long
hours.
time.
Dude.
Yeah.
But she alerts him that the time is running out. Derek screams at her to give him the access code, and Irene imparts a pro tip of her own. If Derek wants to swim to the top, he's going to have to drop the dead weight. Melanie growls as she raises the mallet higher, and Derek warns Smythe that Melanie will do it. He starts to count backwards from 5, less convincing as each number goes by. When he gets to 2, Smythe finishes for him. 1. Derek punches Melanie in the back of the head, and when it all goes black, we hear him pant out his complicity. Deal. I was like, Derek, no!
I know.
When we come back, Derek is tying Melanie to a chair in the meeting room as she screams. She yells, "Fuck you" to Derek, once again calling him a piece of shit suit and surmising that they're all the same. Smythe lays out instruments of torture on the table, but when Derek tells her that he's done, Smythe checks the restraints before assuring Melanie that she'll be back shortly. She tells Derek to follow her out of the room.
I just have to say very quickly how foolish Smythe is in this moment. She's like, "Now I'll leave you two alone."
Yeah.
It's like, you really trust this guy.
Well, he's loyal, remember?
Yes, yeah, that's his downfall.
Yeah.
She leaves, but Derek stays behind, looking down at Melanie captive in the office chair. He lowers his face to hers, and though she backs away at first, he is silently insistent. The two share a deep kiss, and when it breaks, Melanie is quiet, and Derek gives her a knowing look. On his way out of the room, he snags her mortgage agreement off the table, and left alone, Melanie has a strange expression on her face. Derek follows Smythe down the hall to the elevator. She types the code in for him, warning that the code only works once and telling him not to do anything stupid. But Derek just smiles brightly at her. Smythe looks confused, and her eyes travel down to Derek's hand, clenched tightly in a fist. When he opens it, there are tiny silver screws. Smythe furrows her brow, trying to make sense of what it all means when the elevator doors close. But we see everything in quick flashes. The deep kiss in which Derek passed a screw into Melanie's mouth, alerting her of his secret plan. Derek loosening the screws in Melanie's chair with his trusty screwdriver and the tool belt. The chair empty. As realization dawns on Smythe, Melanie stomps down the hall toward her. She raises her arm up, and we hear the crunch of Smythe's skull as we join Derek back in the elevator. Again, we don't see her get her comeuppance.
No, it's really odd choices.
Yeah.
You're right.
I feel like Derek took a big risk here because he did knock her out.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah, he did.
So, like, you don't know when she's going to wake up. You don't know if she has, like, brain damage now.
Yeah.
Like, you know, but it all worked out.
Yeah.
You got lucky.
You did. They both did. As the elevator rises to the penthouse, Derek remembers Tower's words, asking Derek if he sees a solution to their problem. We see quick cuts of Towers raging and doing coke off his desk. His words echo, citing the Neville Reed case and reminding Derek that he's infected and has impunity. We need to be reminded one more time. His jaw clenched and set. Derek punches himself in the face, readying for the final showdown. Towers continues that Derek might think he can have a little fun, but he's going to beat him to the punch.
Did this remind anyone else of Fight Club?
Yeah, for sure. I also have something to say relating to Fight Club in a minute.
Okay. I feel like Fight Club is pretty horrific, isn't it?
Don't fucking play with me right now.
Some real horrific things that happen
Don't play with me.
on Fight Club.
But Derek continues to punch himself, roaring and screaming as the elevator rises to the 8th floor. As the doors slide open, Towers leaves us with one last remembered sentiment. Let's discuss. And Joe Lynch had said that he and Caruso bonded over how much they hate receiving shit like that in emails. Let's discuss, just like the passive aggressive. So I thought that was a nice touch.
That's good.
He also pointed out that someone pointed out to him that they found it interesting, and he was like, I did not do this on purpose. He was like, maybe it was subconscious. But they told him that they thought it was very interesting and compelling that Derek Cho starts the film white collar with his suits and pressed shirts and ends the film blue collar with a stained white shirt and a tool belt. And that's when he finds himself, you know. I thought that's
pretty good.
Yeah.
He was like, when that wasn't on purpose, maybe it was subconscious. But as soon as Derek kicks in the door to the boardroom, someone begins to pour a glass of champagne, and he is met with applause. He slams his hands down on the table, the mortgage agreement in one and a wrench in the other, as a pulled together John Towers, flanked by two statuesque women, looks over paperwork at the other end of the table. Derek spits a glob of blood down onto the tabletop, and we pan up to him, blood running in ribbons down his face and one of his eyes so newly swollen that it's barely open. Towers closes the folder he was looking into and slides it across the table at Derek. Derek asks what it is, and when we see Towers again, he's already settled into his chair, sipping from the glass of champagne, because I did think the champagne was for Derek, but But he explains that it's conditions of his surrender, a partnership contract. As the broken TV glitches behind him, Derek laughs heartily, proclaiming Towers to be a piece of shit. Towers looks at it pragmatically. His guy killed Derek's guy, and then Derek killed him. They're even now. They can just get down to business. He instructs one of the women to give details, and she does, her eye a deep red as she walks down the length of the table toward Derek. She teases monthly profit participation, annual performance bonuses, a vehicle allowance, including gas, maintenance, and a chauffeur. As the 9 pass out glasses of champagne behind Towers, the other woman takes over, describing expense accounts, full cell phone allowance, paid parking, and country club fees. Towers tells Derek that he's seen him admiring all of this. When he asks, isn't this what he always wanted? Derek quietly answers, yes. Towers laughs jovially, asking if that's the case, why doesn't Derek have a fucking pen in his hand? One of the women sets a pen down next to Derek, and the other opens the folder with his offer. Towers asks if he really wants to spend the next 20 years working his ass off for maybe half of this. The women purr in his ear to sign it, and they'll give him the old thinner. They advise him to be smart, to be rich. What, I can't say thinner anymore?
No, it's just absurd. The implications of it, I think, is what it is. I will say again, this is where it really starts to be like super heavy-handed, dude. The film's knuckles are dragging on the floor, is what I'm trying to say with this. And you'll be rich.
Well, the stakes...
Really well.
He will, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of goodies that come with this. Goodies. They are.
Yeah.
Derek looks at the agreement, but closes it to find Melanie's mortgage agreement on the table behind it. He slams it closed the rest of the way, giving Towers a firm no. Towers sighs in disappointment, and suddenly, one of the women breaks a champagne glass and goes for Derek with its sharp edge. But when he backs away, it's plunged into the other woman's throat, killing her. Derek punches the first woman, and she's down too. So I was like, were they like, if he says no, forgive him.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
try.
And nobody really seems to care about this.
No.
Well, I've never seen these women before in my life.
No.
Well, they've been hanging out with him all day.
Oh, yeah.
Like, no, Sarah, or whatever. I don't know.
The 9 disperse as Towers gets to his feet, takes his jacket off, and picks up his club. He and Derek stand in opposition, and Towers takes a big, healthy snort of coke, leaving the white powder all over his face. As the 9 cower in the corner, he raises his club and muses that his is bigger when he looks down at Derek's wrench. As he launches himself at Derek, he says that his is always bigger. They go at each other, but Derek is stronger, and when he gains the upper hand, Towers pocket sands him with cocaine. That's 2 pocket sands in one movie.
Yeah.
I was with you at the beginning when you took a handful to the nose, but using it as a weapon, don't do that.
It's only going to make him fight you harder, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's true.
I want a challenge.
This is foolish. It's in his eyes, and Derek swings blindly with his wrench. Towers informs him that that's his problem. No vision. I was like, all right, that was good, but fuck you.
Yeah, I took back what I said before.
He clobbers Derek with the golf club and pushes him down on the table, climbing on top of him and choking him with it. Derek is able to push him off and roll away. And when Towers brings the club down again, it bends and he demands another. When he's presented with the wrong one, he chastises the partner, but Derek is taking this pause to hide under the table and slide on the broken handle of his beloved mug like a pair of brass knuckles.
Got to admit, very cool.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good. Screaming, he launches himself at Towers, flying over the table and hitting him right in the face. He proceeds to whoop Towers' ass into the hallway and lean him backwards over the railing of the floor hole. Remember, I told y'all it was going to be important?
Yeah.
The remaining 9 gingerly set down their glasses of champagne as they go out to watch. Derek tells Towers to look at them as the timer pops back up in the corner, counting down from 1 minute and 32 seconds. I was like, because they got out of the basement and there was over 6 hours left. He's going to sleep good tonight.
Oh, dude. Well, he got a face full of cocaine. I'm not sure.
Maybe not. He's going to sleep good tomorrow. When Derek screams at him again to look at them, Towers finally does. He tells Towers what they're thinking right now, how big their piece of the pie is going to get when Towers stops taking his. He calls out to them, proposing that they vote and make it quick. One by one, the remaining 9 drag their thumbs across their throat. Towers asks if Derek can do it. He tells him that he can't because he's a pussy, which is a bold move to do right now.
Yeah.
Is the virus still a thing? Or we
have a minute left.
Yeah, for a minute and a half.
Because I know they pumped the building and everything, but he's like, can you do it? It's like, I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
I hate you and my brain's letting me.
Yeah, but I think that they've all been pretending for the last hour and a half.
Probably.
Not having any more symptoms.
Fair.
They're like, we have impunity, didn't you hear?
The Neville Reed case.
Yeah.
But Towers tells him that that's why he is up here and Derek is down below. And once all this is over, he promises to piss on Derek's corpse too. I was like, don't remind him of that.
Yeah.
I just want to say it made me laugh because he said, piss on your corpse as well.
It's like, don't forget.
It's like, as well? In this moment? In this economy? Like, that's just, it just didn't, I don't know, it made me laugh.
He's a villain.
He is a villain.
Derek's face breaks out into a smile and he hauls back in a powerful punch, launching Towers down into the floor hole. Tinged in blue, Derek watches as the boss falls. He stumbles back into the boardroom, his voiceover announcing the fall of the king. He says with time running out on the quarantine, he finally pled his case to the 9. Well, 8.
Mm-hmm.
As he takes his seat at the head of the table, they scramble to sit down, and his voiceover muses that they were very eager to listen despite him having just taken out their CEO. I think that's probably why they were eager to listen. But we watch as he explains his situation calmly to the rest of the partners, and we hear him sum it up earnestly to the 8. I think I deserve my job back. One by one, they nod their shaky agreements, but Derek's voiceover comes back to continue that as they voted, it dawned on him. It was something his sister had been trying to tell him for years, and what his new friend reminded him today. He tells us as we see him, painting this boardroom with the 8 leaned in intently and blood spattering the walls behind them. He didn't have a job. The job had him. He was another slave to the grind. We now see that Derek is painting in an art studio surrounded by other artists. He says that we all paint our paths with the best of intentions, but at the end of the day, sometimes it takes a brushstroke of circumstance or a deadly virus to set us on the right path. In the boardroom, they pass the folder back to Derek with their signatures. Melanie's mortgage agreement sticks out of it. Derek says that this is now referred to as the incident at TSC, and it became a watershed case to fast track a vaccine for ID7, pending FDA approval. As we watch Towers continuing to plummet into a slick, giant puddle of blood, Derek signs his contract, crossing an X out over the space where Towers is supposed to sign his. And he reveals that they gave him Towers' job.
Yeah, I don't...
Yeah, what?
It's just like, was this a dream? Was this whole thing a dream?
He finally has his seat at the big kids' table. At an art studio, he glances at the easel in front of him, where Melanie works intently on her piece. When she catches his eye, she gives him a wink and a middle finger, and balancing his palette, he gives her one back with a smile. Melanie giggles and gets back to her painting. In the boardroom, Derek tells us that he took the job just long enough to make an executive decision to do some good. He signs the bottom of Melanie's mortgage agreement, granting her what she's been questing for all day. With this done, he looks up at the rest of the partners with a smile and tells them, I quit. So on commentary, Joe Lynch talked about Steven Yeun saying, what if he takes the job?
Well, that's kind of what why you're put in this position where now you're top dog. Why wouldn't you try to do some good with it or restructure, or you've got the money, you guys are going to vote me out later. Let me help as many people as I can.
That I feel
that reading of it, 100%.
Yeah.
I think his was
he becomes one of them.
Yeah.
But
no.
My thing is it would be it would, I guess, make more sense if he just had his old job back. If he took it and then still was trying to climb the ladder. But you're right. Him being given the CEO position, you could completely change this place. You could make fucking Ray, the IT guy, a partner. Like, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, and you're the loophole guy. You can help as many people as you want.
That's true. But like T said, it was proposed in a way of like...
a heel turn.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He finally gets what he wants again.
But everything would be for nothing then.
100%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But Steven Yeun was basically like, it could happen. Like, some people might be tempted enough to just take it. So they filmed both while they were there. And when they cut it together, they said that the producers couldn't decide which ending they liked better. So, and indulge me for a moment. You can all roll your eyes if you want to, not you two. But he said that what swayed his vote, because he wasn't sure either what he liked better, but the 2016 election made him sick of seeing bad guys win.
Okay.
So he said, no, Derek's not going to take this job. He's done. He made his change. He made the difference. He helped his friend. They're together forever.
Yeah.
In my mind. And he's getting the fuck out.
Well, I mean, when you look at it, and they even talked about it on the commentary I listened to.
Yeah.
Following the whole arc, it's not even like a twist ending at that point. It's just kind of like a fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they also proposed, what if Melanie is like Derek's Tyler Durden? What if Melanie's not really there with him at all?
So more Fight Club.
Yeah. That's why I was like, we'll talk about Fight Club in a minute. But they proposed it and they talked about it and they were like, okay, we just got to keep her in the background and Derek can talk to her, but nobody else can acknowledge her and da-da-da. And then he was like, the more that they talked about it, they were like, no, we want this moment of them getting out of this and painting together and having a future. And she has her home now. And they were like, plus, that people were just going to say that it was a Fight Club ripoff. And it's like, well, yeah, kind of. But
I will say some of the things are still shot that way. Her on
the couch,
the siren's couch.
Yes,
that's exactly what I was thinking.
That's exactly what I thought when I was listening to them. But because Steven Yeun said that Melanie is Derek's voice that he's been suppressing in himself, working in this place, and Joe Lynch referred to her as Derek's id. And so them talking about it, it was like, well, what if she actually was? But the more that they kind of fleshed it out, they were like, this doesn't work. And I like it better this way because I love them together and I want her to be real.
Yeah, and a film like this, with the way that they've played it as more lighthearted, it deserves a happy ending.
Yeah. But Derek tells us that he knows what we're thinking. The story is wrapped up in a bow, but they just killed a bunch of people. And Derek says that he has to live with that. But they say that everything happens for a reason, and he's starting to believe it. Joe Lynch said that Stephen Yeun insisted on that line, that he has to live with what he's done, because he thought that it was a bit nihilistic to just murder all these people and just strut out of the building.
Yeah, not care.
I mean, living with what he's done, what really has he done?
They killed a lot of people today.
Yeah, I guess there was that choreographed fight scene, I guess. Okay, I forgot about that.
But as the quarantine is lifted, people run out of TSC and into the night. But Melanie and Derek walk out hand in hand and covered in blood. He is all smiles as his voiceover imparts on us one more pro tip. Paint your own path to success in work, love, and life. John Towers finally crash lands on the puddle of blood, and his screaming is cut to an abrupt end. Derek finishes his advice before it's too fucking late. It cuts to black, and we get the title in bright red, and the credits roll with very bright alternating colors behind them.
This is a very nice homage to A Clockwork Orange.
Okay.
Another horrific film.
I see what you're talking about. But I have to ask, so what did you guys think of Mayhem?
I really like this movie. I do want to say that I don't think it's as strong as watching it the first couple of times, but I feel like what this movie does is if you stay with the momentum, you're fine. Is there a lot of things that are kind of like, what the hell? Yeah, but I enjoy what this movie does. It lives up to the name. It is mayhem. Like, shit is going crazy. A lot of the story stuff, again, for me, I forgive it because the momentum of the movie continues to push you forward, and it's just like, oh shit, oh, what are you gonna do now? Oh, you are fucking, oh shit. Like, it is very short, but they pack a lot in there in that time. And I do agree with them bringing up the technicality thing a lot, but I feel like that also plays into them or him being like, we can do this. We've got, we get away with it. It is a lot, but I mean, again, this is a really fun movie. And I think, like you said at the beginning, T, this is a group movie. This is a movie to put on with your friends or at a party or whatever. And it's like, dude, y'all have got to watch this. If you haven't seen it, I would suggest watching it just for the fun factor. Mm-hmm. Even if you don't like it, even just to watch it and kind of like tear it apart, and then you're still going to have fun with it. You know what I mean? It's still a fun movie.
Yeah. And again, I completely agree. The matter of it being a fun film.
Yeah.
I think for me, and again, I think that's where it really begins and ends. It is a fun time. The runtime isn't very long.
Yeah.
I think that the chemistry of the lead cast is what propels it. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of fun sequences. I don't know. For me, I feel like maybe it's a matter of other films that I appreciate more take this to, I don't want to say greater heights, but they explore more of what I want.
Okay.
And so I do see this as a very fun film to watch. I just don't see myself returning to it very often because I don't think that what I hoped for from it, I get from it. But I think that the first time I watched it, even this time I watched it, it's still a fun time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you enjoy your watch through. And if you are with friends, it's the perfect like Friday night movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that we all agree that it's just a lot of fun. Some movies, it's hard to stand up against pulling at every little thread. And you know what I mean? Like, some are just, they are what they are. Like, enjoy them or don't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like Mayhem, the first two times that and I've only seen it the two times when I wasn't reviewing it or working, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And both of those times I really loved it. I really had a blast. This time I really did still like it. It is still a lot of fun. I think that I really, really love Stephen Yeun and Samara Weaving both. I think that they're both great. I love watching them. I think they're both, they have a magnetism. Yeah. To the audience and to each other in this. It's really good.
That's one thing I will say. Though I'm not a giant fan of Samara Weaving, they do good.
Yeah.
Together in this movie, they do really good.
I think that Joe Lynch said it best when he said that they're the sugar that helps the medicine go down, because if you kind of zoom out, the commentary and the situations of this film, as it starts, are bleak as fuck.
Yeah.
But you kind of forget because you're just having a good time, and it becomes this really fun revenge story, and that's why them adding that line was interesting to me, because you have to sit back and be like, oh, they fucking killed Lester, dude. You know what I mean? She chopped him up with the fucking electric saw.
Yeah.
That's wild.
You gotta live with that.
They were just like, go to the penthouse. You know what I mean?
One down, two to go.
Yeah, and she bludgeoned Irene Smythe.
Oh, yeah.
And fucking Derek threw John Towers down the floor hole.
Yeah.
But they're just striding away, and I'm like, I hope they get married. You know what I mean?
They're holding hands.
Yeah.
And I hope that his severance already got transferred over.
Very important.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I think that especially the first time you watch it, I don't know if any subsequent time is going to be as good as that time. But there's just something special about the way that it's shot, about, you're rooting for him, because we've all, most of us, I would wager, have worked for fucking idiots or assholes or people where it's like, oh, you definitely got there by stabbing every person that ever trusted you in the back.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it is disgusting, and it's everyday life. And so it is kind of cool to see a Derek Cho who was on the path to become one of them be like, no, fuck this. It's cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
It is cool. I will say it's kind of wild. It took him until just before he was signing the contract to be like, oh, wow. You know what?
And he literally says it dawned on me. I think this company might be bad, dude.
Yeah. Are we the baddies?
But I think that it's just a really good time. I'm just going to kind of slide into ratings as well. It's a blast. I think, like I said, the performances are really good. I think that there is some heavy-handedness with the writing, but how seriously do you want to take this? I think is the takeaway. What are you in this for? And if you're just in this to kind of have a fun time and watch these people kind of take on this corporate structure and fuck some people up, you're going to have fun. I think that the premise of the virus is really cool. I think confining this into a corporate setting is very funny, because it's such a lot of times this thinly veiled passive aggression, and it's just no. My only thing again with that, I would like to see the aggression maybe turned up a little bit more. I'm not saying the sadness. Obviously, this is not that kind of film.
No.
But these people were pretty tame. But no, I definitely recommend it. I think a lot of people have seen it at this point, but it shocks me that when we found it in 2020, it was 3 years old, and I'd never heard of it in my life. But it's just a really good time, and it was cool seeing Joe Lynch talk about it and hearing how open to collaboration he was. And I feel like when it's like that, you're going to take more pride, and you're going to give that little bit extra because, you're telling the story too. I think that is so invaluable, and more directors should work like that.
Agreed.
I know that there are some inconsistencies with what the virus is.
Yeah.
Or what it's making these people do. And again, it just depends on how seriously you're going to take the narrative that's been established. It does hurt it a little bit for me, but it's at the end of the day, especially when you watch this for the first time and you're just watching it through, you don't really care. I didn't care.
Yeah.
The first couple times I watched, I wasn't like, well, how was he reasoning? I wasn't fucking. The story is told in such a breakneck speed, and the performances are so convincing. I'm not even stopping to think about that. I'm just like, oh, Derek's about to fuck this dude up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I think I'm saying the same shit over and over at this point. But I will say I am going to give it that little extra oomph because I remember how much fun I had watching it with both of y'all. Because I mean, it's a very fun film, especially that first time. But on a scale from 1 to 10, rage-infected red eyes.
Very good.
I am going to give Mayhem 8 out of 10 rage-infected red eyes. T's looking at me like I'm crazy.
I respect your score.
I was stuck between two numbers. I am going to go with the higher one because I love Steven Yeun and I love Samara Weaving a lot. And they're a blast to watch separately, and they were really a blast to watch together. And I liked hearing Joe Lynch. All the passion that went into this was pretty cool. But yeah, I will now open up the floor to you.
Thinking about it now, this is the 4th time I've watched this movie. I watched it with you, babe. Then I watched it one other time by myself. Then I watched Joe Bob cover it on the last drive-in stand-up Mutant Family. But so this is the 4th time for the show, and thinking about it, I do still really like this movie. I do agree it doesn't have that as it did the first once or twice, but I think you hit the nail on the head, babe. It's what you go into this with.
Yeah.
It's if you're going to go into it and you want more, it's probably not going to give it to you. Mm-hmm. If you're going in and it's like, I'm just going to watch this to have fun, you're going to get what you want. And again, them as a duo is really fun. Steven Yeun, fantastic. Samara Weaving, again, however I feel, she does really good in the movie. Mm-hmm. It's really good. Everybody else, I do agree that they should have been turned up to fit with the atmosphere around them because everybody else was freaking out. They weren't. They were able to control it. So was the bosses and everybody else. But again, and you said T earlier, and that was something that helped it for me, the video game feel of it at points. Mm-hmm. That I was like, okay, cool. Now this is a cutscene and we're going to the load zone and now we're going to the next stage. And it did. And again, too, he punched Tower into the fucking floor hole. All you needed was a finish him before. And it was like, that fit right there.
He did like power up that.
He did. But it is a very, very fun movie. I do enjoy it. Again, like I said, I do agree that it doesn't have that as the first time or two, but I would watch this movie again. Probably not right away because I've already kind of remembered what's going on. Mm-hmm. But in some time, you know what I mean? I would. But all that to say, for me, on a scale of 1 to 10, rage-infected red eyes, I am also going to give Mayhem an 8. The more I had the same thing. I had 2 numbers. The more we talked about it, and like when your sister was watching those, the making of it and all that stuff and the documentary stuff for it, I could hear what he was saying, and I was like, oh, so you put a lot into this movie. Mm-hmm. And that also kind of helped me to like, damn, you, even if this isn't your favorite movie, him just saying this is a movie I put a lot of passion into, or I put a lot of work and it's personal to me. It's like, man, again, with the fight scenes, I can tell that shit is great. But that for me, I did enjoy Mayhem.
And I mean, I do like it too, and I do enjoy it. I think that, of course, I always respect all the work that goes into getting a film made. Yeah. The performances of the cast, definitely the biggest positive for me. Mm-hmm. And the cinematography, the feel and the look of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I gotta give it to Joe Lynch. Uh-huh. Because I feel like his direction of it is very proper as well.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's just the script and the material, it doesn't rise to everything else.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I think that I could be wanting too much from it as far as the social commentary is concerned.
Right.
I think you have such an opportunity with everything around to say quite a lot.
Yeah.
And I do feel like I get more of the, and I appreciate the messaging. But again, if I kind of want to see like an anti-corporatist film, I'll go watch Fight Club.
Yeah.
If I want to see, kind of like a nihilistic kind of a situation, I'll go watch A Clockwork Orange. Mm-hmm. But, this film is fun. and there is a lot to it. I just don't see myself returning to it as much as I had hoped to.
Okay.
But if you love it, I love that for you. To each their own. Every, cookies crumble or something.
Uh-huh.
What is it?
Ooh, let's go get crumble cookies after this.
Not sponsored, but let's ask them to sponsor. But for me, out of 10 rage-infected red eyes, because I did enjoy this movie and I did have fun with it, and it is better than okay, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am going to give Mayhem 6 rage-infected red eyes out of 10.
I knew you were going to say 6.
How did you know?
I don't know.
And I wanted to say I only had a look of surprise at your score because I know how much it annoys you when films break their own rules.
It does.
Is that the 2 points?
It does, yeah. Well, that's all from us at Pod Mortem. What would you rate Mayhem and what should we watch next? Let us know on Twitter at the Pod Mortem. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and like our Stairhole Productions page on Facebook. Be sure to follow each of us on Twitter at Blood and Smoke, at RealStreeter84, and at TravisMWH. Thanks again to Original Cinematic for sponsoring this week's episode. Please consider pledging to our Patreon, where you'll get bonus content like The Corner of Creep and No Sleep, where we read and riff on creepypastas and Reddit No Sleeps, and Talk Mortem, where we answer your questions and take on random topics. Stay tuned until after the music for a special shout out to our Wendigo Getter patrons. And remember, life is about balance. Dedication to your work is admirable, but you have to realize when it's time to let your hair down and paint the town red. Until next time. Thank you for staying tuned for a special thank you to our Wendigo Getter patrons.
Woo, yeah.
Yeah. A special thank you to Chris Ontiveros, Kristen Lofton, Megan Martinez, Kimberly Bass, Sophie Hodson, Anthony Jerome M., Jordan Nash, Kent Morton, Lala Thomas, Travis Anissa Hunter, Miguel Myers ATX, Jennifer Perez, Allison O'Neill, Carissa, TJ and Angie Bronson, Gabrielle Trevino, Spooky Mom, Applin Ontiveros, Karima Rhodes, Antonio Huerta, Kimberly Kleindienst, Will Brown, Sydney Smith, Osvaldo Soto, Bobby Holmes, Donna Eason, JD Rizak, Molly Gerhart, Armand Spasto, Aaron Aguirre, Eggy, William Barry, Brittany Seaman, Charity Oxner, Amanda Six, Mandy Rainwater, Jordan Roberts, Dylan, Jordan Blevins, Liz Heath, Spencer Montalvo, Pancake the Panda, John Ramos, Michael Newding, Alexis Roberts, Dan Laveau, Itzy M, Gary Horton, Leisha Olivier, Kate Lamp, Carlos and Sydney, Jessica Hunter, Helena Rudder, Alan Johnston, Mariah, Livy Fun, Scott Troutman-Wise, Towton Watson, Mozzie Bear, Brittany G, Dave Burke, Adrian Stakes, Daniel McGinnis, Nick Spill, Emma Hagel-Kissinger,
Valerie G, Emiliana, Brian Glass, CB, Taylor Santana, Will Lewison, Angelique, Smelly Poo Poo Head, Beth Bauer, Cookie, Esperanza J, Jason Cow OKC, Danielle Peralta, Brandon, Nicholas Carter, Sawyer Reese Farr, Dr. Diva Loves Horror, Girl That's Scary, Cassandra, Andrea Simmons, Ashley Higuera, William and Xxena Rush, Ryan Brom, Megan Ochoa, Laura Lassiter, Natalie de Guzman, Eileen O, Marissa E, Sydney, Henry F, Megan M, Strangely Sarah, Christy Beck, Nancy and Andy, Amanda Lopez, Andy Terrell, Jason Hanavan, Katie K, Erica Morin, Cameron S, Nicole Stewart, Tris Wynn, K.87, Mariah Jensen, Carrie A, Lonnie Lono, Powell, Kayla E, Maggie H, Murder Stina, No Thanks Tom Hanks, Kevin McGonigal, Kristen Marcy, Ori81 Boricua, Look Like That One Girl, Bog Boy, Felnez 63,
Alita Pui, Probably My Jugs, Kate Thackeray, Wade Pack, A Lizard, Bay J, Jay Rich, Jen Lassiter, Topher Williams, Elena Metler, Valerie K, Christy Lee Kruger, Professor of Humanities Laura McCarricker, Naomi, Josh Smith, Autumn Green, Abby Kopp, Crystal 831, Cassidy Carruthers, Skank Sinatra, Morgan Alexander, Tony Osteen, Julie Fredborg, Rihanna S., Daniel Taylor, Anna Kate, Heather Ortiz, Jen T., Kim H., August, Vengeance Spirit, Sam J. Green, Kelly Glazyface Mack, Ginny May, Zoe Marie, Glittery Fab, Malik Caselli Armstrong, Scarly D, Toya Shea, Katie, Martin Shaw, Star, Tyler J, Daniel Dickerson, Jordan Gaddis, Cam Davies, Tanya Selvog, Patrick Hoagland, Raven, King Roger, D, Wesley Tart, and Kristen Jackson. Thank you all so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. And we really wanted this episode to make y'all proud, and we hope it did. Like you're in.
Yeah.
Psychology.
Yeah.
And the film.
In the film, yes. Until next time.